Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. President Biden is at the State Department today to deliver a speech on foreign policy. In exactly 1 week, Donald Trump will be coming to power with a very different approach. We break down the biggest changes that we're likely to see. The Senate is beginning the process of confirming President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. A look at the process and which picks are up first. California firefighters are at a critical juncture in the battle against the wildfires. More on their latest response. Israel and Hamas on the cusp of a ceasefire and hostage agreement. Here are the latest on the negotiation efforts from the White House. A 6.9 magnitude earthquake hits southwestern Japan. Officials in Japan now warning the public to be aware of potential tsunamis. Britain deepens its economic ties with China as UK financial markets face turmoil amid dropping investor confidence.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
The first of President-elect Trump's cabinet picks could soon become official. The Senate will begin its process of confirming Trump's nominations this week, and here is a look at how that'll work.
President-elect Trump may have mapped out his cabinet already, but this week it's up to the Senate to make that a reality. Senate committee hearings will begin Tuesday morning with the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee reviewing Doug Collins as Veteran Affairs Secretary. This will be followed closely by the Senate Armed Services Committee's hearing on Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth and the Senate Energy and Natural Resources with Interior Secretary nominee Doug Burgum. Wednesday will see the majority of hearings, including those for Attorney General, CIA Director, and Secretary of State. The hearing for potential Attorney General Bondi is scheduled over 2 days. Before a hearing, senators will ask for biographical information from the nominee, and they will be required to disclose their finances. During the hearing, the committee will ask questions about the nominee's background, qualifications, and views. Nominees for positions that require security clearance traditionally also undergo an FBI background check. After a hearing, the committee's members can report the nomination favorably or unfavorably before a final vote on the Senate floor. A change in rules in 2013 now means nominees need only a simple majority to end the debate and for final confirmation. Republicans will hold a 53-47 majority of the Senate after West Virginia's Jim Justice is sworn in and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance's replacement is announced. Some of Trump's picks are expected to be confirmed easily. Senator Marco Rubio for State Secretary, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik for UN Ambassador, and Doug Burgum for Interior Secretary will be among those who can garner majority support. Some of the more controversial picks are likely to be Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary, Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, Kash Patel as FBI Director, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health Secretary.
This week, we will be seeing 13 of Trump's cabinet picks facing confirmation hearings. Now, if they pass those, they'll then be headed for a vote on the Senate floor. Republicans hold a very slim majority in the Senate, and the outcome of this week's hearings could play a big role in just how much change the president-elect can carry out in his first days back in office. Joining us now to break this all down is Sarah Parshall-Perry, a senior counsel in the former Trump administration and senior legal fellow with the Heritage Foundation. Sarah, thanks for joining us. To start us off, just give us a forecast here. What can we expect to see starting tomorrow?
Well, it's going to be a very busy period of time for the Senate. Now, remember, this is the brand new, newly minted 119th Congress. We are now seeing individuals who are fulfilling these roles. They were all just sworn in on January 3rd, and they really have some work cut out for them. In fact, in the previous administration, the Trump's cabinet level picks were not fully confirmed and in their posts until the end of April 2017. That leaves a skeletal staff to be able to continue to do the work that enforces his America First agenda. So there is an increased time sensitivity to getting these particular provisions and positions confirmed. Some of them are likely to be very easy. Doug Collins, for example, Marco Rubio, these are anticipated to be easy confirmations. They have extensive experience and they're relative fields, and many of them have already served in these public positions that have required financial disclosures and security background checks. But for the rest of them, which appear to be controversial, I think, to outside influencers who are happy with the status quo in Washington, D.C., they may be more controversial and they may require more confirmation hearings. Of course, Pam Bondi is already scheduled for 2 days of hearings, likely an anticipation of the fact that she may be considered a more controversial post position.
Sarah, you practically answered like 3 of my following questions there. I guess my question here now is that, we have seen Trump promising a lot of action right from the get-go, first day in office. So if some of these picks of his were not to be confirmed in time, how would that set him back?
It would certainly stall his forward momentum. Remember also that Republicans are going to have to pass various reconciliation bills, possibly more than one, to be able to fund his America First agenda. In fact, even the deportations that the president has been talking about for some time, enhancing border security, cutting down on crime, those are going to require certain expenditures of funds. And remember, we are currently on a continuing resolution as it stands now. So Republicans are going to have to find the funding to be able to put forward many of these agenda items. That is duly difficult to do, especially when the posts through which these particular agenda items are going to be exercised at the cabinet level are currently unstaffed. So the quicker these confirmations are made, the more robust an opportunity the president has to be able to exercise all of those campaign promises and actually put them into motion for the American people.
So how likely are we to see Republican pushback against Trump's picks, or are you seeing an overall consensus in the party in terms of these nominees?
I think largely there is a consensus. Of course, there are going to be particular holdouts who are confident that they like the status quo and that these are nominees who are too controversial, potentially, who come from non-traditional positions. Pete Hegseth, of course, is a stellar candidate. Not only has he been a combat veteran, but he has also advocated for Veterans Affairs on Capitol Hill for many, many years. But I think for some people who recognize him as a talking head on Fox, that has been somehow off-putting. But it's very clear that President Donald Trump, from the outset, wants to make sure that he shakes up Washington, that this is not business as usual. He does not want an entrenched bureaucracy. He wants creative solutions to real world problems. And I think his nominations indicate that.
Speaking of Pete Hegseth, we have seen certain controversies surrounding him in the past few months. How big of an impact do you see that being?
It will certainly come up in Senate confirmation hearings. Remember, the Democrats are going to do everything that they conceivably can to stall these cabinet level nominees. That is, of course, the name of the game. Biden administration, those cabinet level positions were largely completely filled by the end of February in his last term. So we're hoping to see the same thing here. But these controversial statements, what are conceived to be controversies for any one of these particular nominees, whether it's a purported lack of experience or a non-traditional career track or personal controversies, those are definitely going to come up during Senate confirmation hearings. That is, of course, the name of the game, whether it's individuals serving in the executive or individuals serving in the judicial branches. Of course, we remember the Clarence Thomas hearings at the Supreme Court, and then again, the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, and that purported controversy as well. So it is the Senate Democrats' job to put on the brakes as much as possible for these cabinet level positions. So it certainly will make an appearance.
And unity was a very big topic of conversation last year over the course of the election. Do you see that in these confirmation hearings? How likely are we to see Democrat support for the appointees this time around?
I think for the non-controversial ones, the ones that are initially at the top of the list, Doug Collins and Marco Rubio, for example, Doug Burgum, obviously, for Interior Secretary, those are all highly credentialed individuals who have been working in these particular spaces, whether it's Veterans Affairs or managing 1 million acres of federal land, as Doug Burgum has done. So some of these are sort of purportedly easy confirmations. There may be consensus on those. And the quicker that happens, obviously, the more we can get to these particular nominees who are anticipated to elicit some pushback. But I think it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag.
Absolutely. Lots to look out for on Capitol Hill this week and next week. Sarah Parshall-Perry, Senior Counsel in the former Trump administration and Senior Legal Fellow with the Heritage Foundation. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And the Biden administration says that a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas is now in sight. The White House provided an update on the progress of the negotiations.
And now, in the last period, just over the course of the last several weeks, we have accelerated that effort to try to bring this to a close. I was in Israel in December, and then I was in Qatar and Egypt, and I met with the leaders of all three countries, basically to try to help put this on a track to get it across the line. President Biden sent Brett McGurk out to Qatar more than a week ago. He has been camped out in Doha, day in, day out, 24 hours a day, working to tighten up these details and try to get this done. We have also coordinated very closely with the incoming administration to present a united message to all the parties, which says it is in the American national security interest, regardless of party, regardless of outgoing or incoming administration, to get this deal done as fast as possible. And now we think those details are on the brink of being fully hammered out, and the parties are right on the cusp of being able to close this deal. Whether or not we go from where we are now to actually closing it, the hours and days ahead will tell. But I believe it is there for the taking, and we're going to do everything we can to push it to get it across the line.
Negotiation talks have been going on in Doha, Qatar, with mediators. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said there is a distinct possibility to get this deal done just before President Biden leaves office. President-elect Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, also joined the negotiations and is in the Middle East. An official said mediators gave Israel and Hamas a final draft of the deal. The Biden administration, along with Egypt and Qatar, has spent more than a year trying to broker an agreement to end the war in Gaza, but both sides have been divided over the details of the planned exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel, as well as the nature of the ceasefire itself. Coming up, we'll be hearing more on President Biden's foreign policies and their impact on the past 4 years. Stay with us.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
According to ancient Chinese medicine, purslane is considered a medicinal herb and is used to help lower cholesterol, improve vascular functions, and prevent diabetes. Perilla seeds can nourish the lungs and spleen. It is used to treat asthma and improve pulmonary functions. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds from Hwangmae Mountain in South Korea. It contains over 90% of omega-3, 6, 7, and 9, the highest concentration possible without chemical additives. The soft gel is made of natural seaweed. It is 100% organic and vegan. Both adults and children can take it with peace of mind. Ancient recipes were passed down from heaven to bring prosperity and longevity. Puritang green vegetable omega-3.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free. From all of us here at My Pillow,
hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed.
We go now to Southern California, where the battle against the wildfires continues. The fires have mostly stopped growing now, but the death toll is up and the recovery process will take a long time. Here's Los Angeles County Fire Chief Anthony Marone on the firefighting efforts.
The complexity of removing the debris from this fire is going to be significant, and it's going to take a long time. It's going to take more than 6 months to remove this debris. We'll get the majority out. California will get the majority of out in that time frame, but it's going to take some time to be able to get everything out so they can start rebuilding and make sure that it is safe for people to come back in and start rebuilding those homes. It's just catastrophic, the amount of destruction that I saw when I was there.
The fires have burned a combined 38,000 acres and killed at least 24 people. 100,000 residents in Los Angeles County are under evacuation orders, and over 12,000 structures have been destroyed. CAL FIRE says the blazes have mostly stopped growing. Two of the biggest fires, the Eaton Fire and the Palisades Fire, are 33% and 14% contained respectively. Just in the Palisades Fire alone, firefighters estimate that over 5,000 homes have been destroyed. According to PowerOutage.us, over 52,000 customers are still without power. The Los Angeles Unified School District will reopen most schools today. Schools in Pasadena and Malibu will remain closed. But the danger is not over yet, as Santa Ana winds are set to return. Here are more details.
Elevated critical fire weather conditions will continue through Wednesday. Please rest assured that your County of Los Angeles Fire Department will be prepared. These winds, combined with low humidities and low fuel moistures, will keep the fire threat in all of Los Angeles County very high.
California Governor Gavin Newsom said the fires could be the most devastating natural disaster in U.S. history, quote, in terms of just the costs associated with it. He said at least 24 people have died, and with many more missing, the death toll is expected to rise. The combined fires have destroyed thousands of homes and forced 100,000 people to evacuate. Some of the evacuated took up shelter at this FEMA assistance room in West Hollywood on Sunday. They included Zuzana Cota from Topanga, west of the city.
We're absolutely terrified. We've left everything behind. We have no insurance. As far as we know, our landlord says our house is still standing in Topanga, but nobody's letting residents in. And we're very concerned about the next few days with the Santa Ana winds kicking up.
Over the past week, many relief efforts have popped up across the region, including this massive donation center in Arcadia, a city close to the Eaton Fire. 6-year-old Oliver Lee and his father were among the thousands of volunteers that showed up to help sort through mountains of donations and hand out supplies.
The worst part about the fire was my dad's school is getting burned down. Kids cannot go to school. Kids and grown-ups are homeless. They don't have anywhere to live.
Private forecaster AccuWeather has estimated the damage and economic loss at $135 to $150 billion. Newsom on Sunday signed an executive order to help expedite the monumental rebuilding effort ahead. It will temporarily suspend environmental regulations for destroyed homes and businesses.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is now introducing President Joe Biden, who will be speaking about his foreign policies at the State Department. Let's tune into that.
Good afternoon. If I didn't say anything, this would go on all afternoon, for good reason. Mr. President, it is an honor to welcome you back to the State Department. On day one of this administration, you shared a few things with me. You told me something that we long discussed, reminded me that American engagement, American leadership is essential. If we're not engaged, if we're not leading, you said, someone else is likely to be doing it, and probably not in a way that advances our interests or values. Or maybe no one's doing it, and then we're likely to have a vacuum filled with bad things before it's filled with good things. But the other thing you told me, Mr. President, was that there's a greater premium than ever before on finding ways to cooperate, to coordinate, to work with other countries if we're going to get done what we need to get done for the American people. And so you instructed me, you instructed all of us to get out there, to rebuild, to rejuvenate, even to reimagine our alliances and partnerships. And I remember what you told me then. You said, we don't know when this is going to make a difference, when we're going to need these friendships, these partnerships, but someday, some way, somewhere, they're going to be critical for advancing the national interest. And that's exactly what the men and women of this department have done. And we've been able to carry out that charge for two reasons. First, the people you see before you, and so many others who are out in the field at embassies and consulates. You said when you came here 4 years ago that the leadership of diplomats of every stripe doing the daily work of government is essential, and they proved it. That daily work has become nightly work, 24/7, 7 days a week, hammering out agreements, jumping into action in crisis, creating opportunities for our citizens around the world, producing expert advice for you and your team at the White House. Everyone here knows this work can be tough. It's often not very glamorous, but it makes us stronger. It makes the world a better place. And we simply couldn't do it without the extraordinary men and women that you have before us, as well as our remarkable partners in government, starting with the great White House team led by Jake Sullivan, my friends and colleagues from across the administration, Secretary of Defense, Samantha Power at USAID, the Secretary of the Treasury, Commerce, and so on. All of these partnerships that we built and built with their teams have made a difference. So to all of my colleagues, thank you. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your partnership. There's one other reason that we've been able to re-engage, rejuvenate our diplomacy. Mr. President, that's you. You have never wavered in the conviction that when America leads, when America engages, there is little we cannot accomplish, and that this country remains a force for good, a force for progress around the world. Your unshakable belief in the promise of America has inspired me for more than 20 years. It's inspired so many people in this department and around the world. Simply put, it's been the privilege of my lifetime to work for you, to work with you, to work with this extraordinary team that you've assembled. And it's the honor of a lifetime to be able to introduce, one more time, the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, please, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's good to be back at the State Department. Tony, if I may start by saying this, you're one of the finest men I've ever known in any undertaking, for one important reason. You have. You're not only brilliant, you have incredible character. You have character. You have more integrity than almost anybody I know. Thank you for always sticking with me. Appreciate it. Folks, I'm grateful for his counsel and his friendship as well, but I also want to thank the members of my cabinet and the members of the Congress who are here today, and to all our diplomats, development experts, service members, and intelligence professionals. Many of the achievements we're going to discuss today were the result of your hard work, and that's not hyperbole, it's true. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for your extraordinary service. Now, I come here to the State Department to report on to the American people on the progress we've made in the last 4 years in our foreign policy and our presidency. I've said many times, we're at an inflection point. The post-Cold War period is over. A new era has begun. In these 4 years, we faced crises that we've been tested. We've come through those tests stronger, in my view, than we entered those tests. This is a fierce competition underway. The future of the global economy, technology, human values, and so much else. Right now, in my view, thanks to our administration, the United States is winning the worldwide competition. Compared to 4 years ago, America is stronger. Our alliances are stronger. Our adversaries and competitors are weaker. We have not gone to war to make these things happen. During my presidency, I've increased America's power at every dimension. We've increased our diplomatic power, creating more allies than the United States has ever had in the history of our nation. We've increased our military power, making the most significant investments in the defense industrial base in decades. We've increased the technology power, taking the lead in artificial intelligence and other technologies of the future. And we've increased the economic power, building the most dynamic economy in the world from the bottom up and the middle out, not the top down. In short, Kamala and I took office, our nation had become stronger at home, are stronger in the world. And now, America is more capable and, I would argue, better prepared than we've been in a long, long time. While our competitors and adversaries are facing stiff headwinds, we have the wind at our back because of all of you. This is what we're heading into. And over the next administration, that's what we're handing it to. Today, I want to lay out what we've done, the opportunities we've created for America, and those opportunities going forward. Today, I can report to the American people our sources of national power are far stronger than we were when we took office. Our economy is booming, although there's more work to do. Our technologies, from artificial intelligence to biotech, quantum, and to advanced semiconductors, they're the envy of the world. And we have made the most significant investments in America and the American workers since the New Deal. To rebuild our roads and bridges, our ports and airports, clean water systems, affordable high-speed internet, and so much more. To build American manufacturing, to make advanced semiconductors, which we invented here at home. We made the largest investment in climate and clean energy ever anywhere on Earth in the history of the world, spurring nearly $500 billion in private sector investment. We've also significantly strengthened the defense industrial base, investing almost $1.3 trillion in procurement and research and development. In real dollars, that's more than America did in any 4-year period during the Cold War. This is going to ensure that we're fully equipped to fight and win wars, which is also the best way to deter wars in the first place. Today, I can report to the American people our alliances are stronger than they've been in decades. NATO is more capable than it's ever been, and many more of our allies are paying their fair share. Before I took office, 9 NATO allies are spending 2% of their GDP on defense. Now, 23 are spending 2%. Look at the Indo-Pacific. We've made partnerships stronger and created new partnerships to challenge China's aggressive behavior and to rebalance power in the region. We did it, what few thought was possible, to build the first ever trilateral partnership between the United States, Japan, and South Korea. then another among the United States, Japan, and the Philippines, drawing closer our Pacific allies to defend our shared security and prosperity. We brokered a defense pact known as AUKUS among the United States, Australia, and the United Kingdom, connecting the Atlantic and Pacific allies as only America is able to do. I've taken the Quad to the next level. The United States, Japan, Australia, and India. When we had that first meeting, I was dumbfounded when they all called and said, "Can we do this at your house?" I think I'm kidding. My wife said, "No problem." It was during the UN meeting, and we thought we were going to do it in New York, but they wanted to do it in Delaware. I said, "Why?" He said, "We can know, then people will know we're really friends." Our democracy, with vibrant economies, working closely, security, supply chains, technology, and so much more. In the Red Sea, we brought together more than 20 countries to protect civilian ships from attack by the Houthis, defending freedom of navigation, one of the world's busiest waterways. And we have strengthened partnerships all across the Americas, defending democracy, targeting corruption, addressing migration, increasing prosperity, and protecting Amazon rainforest, which captures billions of tons of carbon from the atmosphere every year. Overall, we've reinvigorated people's faith in the United States as a true partner. Today, I can report to the American people, our adversaries are weaker than were when we came into this job 4 years ago. Just consider Russia. When Putin invaded Ukraine, he thought he'd conquer Kyiv in a matter of days. The truth is, since that war began, I'm the only one that stood in the center of Kyiv, not him. Putin never has. Think about it. It was a long train ride, but I'm the only commander-in-chief to visit a war zone not controlled by U.S. forces. We helped Ukrainians stop Putin. And now, nearly three years later, Putin has failed to achieve any of his strategic objectives. He has failed thus far to subjugate Ukraine, failed to break the unity of NATO, and failed to make large territorial gains. There's more to do. We can't walk away. We rallied 50 nations to stand with Ukraine, not just in Europe, for the first time in Asia as well. Because those countries in Asia know what happens in Ukraine matters to them as well. We delivered air interceptors, massive numbers of munitions, enacted relentless, unprecedented sanctions to keep Ukraine in the fight. And now Russia is struggling to replace what they are losing on the battlefield in terms of military equipment and fighters. And the ruble is under enormous pressure. As I saw it, when Putin launched his invasion, I had two jobs. One, to rally the world to defend Ukraine, and the other is to avoid war between two nuclear powers. We did both those things. Today, Ukraine is still free, independent country with the potential for a bright future. And we laid the foundation for the next administration so they can protect the bright future of the Ukrainian people. And now, look at Iran. Did you ever think we'd be where we are with Iran at this moment? After those despicable attacks by Hamas on October the 7th, Iran directly attacked Israel twice with hundreds of ballistic missiles and drones. And twice they failed because the United States organized a coalition of countries to stop them and ordered U.S. aircraft to come to the defense of Israel. Now, Iran's air defenses are in shambles. Their main proxy, Hezbollah, is badly wounded. And as we tested Iran's willingness to revive the nuclear deal, we kept the pressure with sanctions. Now Iran's economy is in desperate straits. All told, Iran is weaker than it has been in decades. And if you want more evidence of a seriously weakened Iran and Russia, let's take a look at Syria. President Assad was both countries' closest ally in the Middle East. Neither could keep him in power. Quite frankly, neither really tried very hard. Now, I cannot claim credit for every factor that led to Iran and Russia growing weaker in the past 4 years. They did plenty of damage all by themselves. But Israel did plenty of damage to Iran and its proxies. But there's no question, our actions contributed significantly. And now major authoritarian states are aligning more closely with one another. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea. But that's more out of weakness than out of strength. So as the new administration begins, the United States is in a fundamentally stronger position with respect to these countries than we were 4 years ago. Today, I can report to the American people we're in a better strategic position in the long-term competition with China than we were when I took office. You all recall, many experts believe were predicting it was inevitable that China's economy would surpass ours. According to many predictions, that would happen by the year 2030 or shortly thereafter. But we in this room said no. If we make the investments in ourselves, we protect our workers and technologies, that will not happen. Now, according to the latest predictions, on China's current course, they will never surpass us, period. I met one-on-one with President Xi in consequential summits. He and I have always been direct and straightforward with each other. I made it clear we expect China and everyone to abide by the international rules. And so we stood up against unfair trade practices, taking action when China dumped subsidized goods, incredibly subsidized, on our markets to undercut our workers. We imposed target tariffs on critical sectors like cars, steel, and semiconductors, rather than across-the-board tariffs. We imposed historic export controls on investments, restrictions, to ensure that China cannot use the most advanced technology and sensitive data against us. Critically, we enlisted our allies and partners to join us, building more convergence among our allies on a shared approach to China than ever existed, and showing that it's more effective to deal with China alongside of partners rather than going it alone. But even while we compete vigorously, we've managed our relationship with China responsibly, so it's never tipped over into conflict. We've created lines of communication between President Xi and myself, and between the leaders of our militaries, to avoid misunderstanding. We found ways to work with each other, to address climate change, to reduce the flow of fentanyl in the United States, which, by the way, overdose deaths are coming down across our nation. And in my administration, we've seized more fentanyl at our border in 2 years than the previous 5 years combined. Today, I can also report to the American people, we're the first president in decades who's not leaving a war in Afghanistan to his successor. But we've got bin Laden during the Obama-Biden administration, the primary objective of war had been accomplished. And I believe that going forward, the primary threat of al-Qaeda would no longer be emanating from Afghanistan, but from elsewhere. And so, we not need to station a sizable number of American forces in Afghanistan. So when I took office, I had a choice. Ultimately, I saw no reason to keep thousands of servicemen in Afghanistan. I think I have my schedule with me, and I keep on my, I don't here, don't have, but I keep on the back of my card the actual number of dead and wounded that occurred in our longest war, to remind myself. Keep spending hundreds of millions of dollars a day. We're no longer doing that. In my view, it was time to end the war and bring our troops home, and we did. I commend the courage of all those who served in Afghanistan. We grieve all 2,461 Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice in the longest war in American history. And I grieve those brave service members whose lives were lost during the withdrawal. We also thank those inside and outside of government who've done so much to help thousands of Afghan families resettle in the United States. Remember, critics said if we ended the war, it would damage our alliances and create threats to our homeland from foreign directed terrorism out of a safe haven in Afghanistan. Neither has occurred. Neither has occurred. Our alliances have stayed strong. We've used our over-the-horizon capabilities to strike in Afghanistan and elsewhere when we had to. For instance, eliminating Zawahiri, leader of Al-Qaeda, who helped orchestrate the September 11th attacks. And we did it without putting more American boots on the ground. And by ending the war, we've been able to focus our energy and resources on more urgent challenges. There is nothing, I can tell you from my conversations with both Xi and Putin, nothing our adversaries and competitors like Russia and China would have liked more than seeing us to continue to be tied down in Afghanistan for another decade. For all those reasons, ending the war was the right thing to do, and I believe history will reflect that. And from the moment I entered office, I also worked to free as many Americans as possible being held hostage or wrongfully detained overseas. We brought home more than 75 Americans by last count. In some cases, it took months, even years of effort, like the prisoner swap with Russia over the past summer. Feat of diplomacy involving many of you and involving multiple countries who joined complex negotiations at our request. Another example of the power of our alliances. We did not have these relationships, those women and women would likely still be in prison. And finally, I can report to the American people, we restored our leadership in a range of other generational priorities. When I took office, we were no longer part of the International Climate Agreement. We announced on day one that we would join the Paris Accord, rejoin. And we've led by example. We've conserved hundreds of millions of acres of land and water, more than any president in American history, making investments in clean energy and convincing other nations to join us. Thanks to our efforts, the world has reached the goal of investing $100 billion every year in public and private funds to reduce greenhouse emissions, to drive down the cost of clean energy, to help developing nations adapt to climate change. Our administration has launched a transformative initiative to build high-impact infrastructure in developing nations. It's called PGI. You all know that better than anyone. This is our alternative to what China offers with its massive projects across Africa and beyond. But their approach features no workers' rights, no environmental protections, unmanageable debt, shoddy construction, all in exchange for military access to ports and other exploitative purposes. By contrast, we've leveraged $600 billion and unleashed the private sector to build an infrastructure in order to grow economies and combat climate change. As an example, I was recently in Angola to see a major project being built with the help of American public funding, which brought in even more private investment. We're building the first ever transcontinental railroad across Africa. Will significantly improve the economies of the region. Will help farmers transport crops in new global markets. Will transport critical minerals that are needed for electric vehicles and semiconductors. China used to control the supply chains in these materials, but not for long. Now, make no mistake, there are serious challenges the United States must continue to deal with. In Ukraine, in the Middle East, in the Indo-Pacific, must keep the pressure on the Houthis, who are attacking ships in the Red Sea, launching missiles at Israel, and firing at American forces. Must deter North Korea as they rattle their saber and draw closer to Russia. New challenges will certainly emerge in the months and years ahead. We'd even But even so, it's clear my administration is leaving the next administration with a very strong hand to play. And we're leaving them in America with more friends and stronger alliances, whose adversaries are weaker and under pressure. An America that once again is leading, uniting countries, setting the agenda, bringing others together behind our plans and visions. An America which is no longer at war, which has made historic investments in American workers, American energies, American factories, generating the strongest economy in the world, which is now in a much better position to win the future against any competitor. These wins are not partisan. They're American. They benefit all Americans and reflect America's endless capacity for leadership and reinvention. Look, folks, the United States should take full advantage of our diplomatic and geopolitical opportunities we've created to keep bringing countries together to deal with challenges posed by China, to make sure Putin's war ends in a just and lasting peace for Ukraine, and to capitalize on a new moment for a more stable, integrated Middle East. To do that, the next administration must make sure the fall of Assad does not lead to the resurgence of ISIS in Syria across the region. We must carry forward the commitment that America will never, never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon. On the war between Israel and Hamas, we're on the brink of a proposal that I laid out in detail months ago, finally coming to fruition. I have learned many years of public service to never, 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 ever give up. So I spoke to Prime Minister of Israel yesterday. I spoke to Emir Qatar today. I look forward to speaking with President Sisi soon. We're pressing hard to close this. The deal we have structured would free the hostages, halt the fighting, provide security to Israel, and allow us to significantly surge humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians who've suffered terribly in this war that Hamas started. They've been through hell. So many innocent people have been killed. So many communities have been destroyed. Palestinian people deserve peace and the right to determine their own futures. Israel deserves peace and real security. And the hostages and their families deserve to be reunited. And so we're working urgently to close this deal. And as we deal with immediate challenges, in my view, we have to look to the future. I urge the next administration to carry forward two issues that have been central to my presidency and which shape the future, in my view. On artificial intelligence, we are in the lead, and we must stay in the lead. We must not offshore artificial intelligence, as we once did with computer chips and other critical technologies. AI has the power to reshape economies, governments, national security, entire societies. And it must be the United States and our closest allies that lead the way to ensure people's rights are respected, their safety is protected, and their data is secure. And likewise, clean energy transition will race ahead in years to come. I know some incoming administration, some in the incoming administration, are skeptical about the need for clean energy. They don't even believe climate change is real. I think they come from a different century. They're wrong. They are dead wrong. It's the single greatest existential threat to humanity. The clean energy transition is already happening. China is trying to dominate the clean energy, manufacturing, critical materials, supply chains. They want to capture the market of the future and create new dependencies. The United States must win that contest. We will shape the global economy and the planet for decades to come. Let me close with this. Like many of you, I've dedicated a significant portion of my career to our nation's foreign policy. As chair of the Foreign Relations Committee as a senator, vice president for 8 years, now president of the United States. I put together one of the most competent foreign policy teams, I would argue, in American history, sitting in this room and before my eyes. Throughout my career, the world has undergone tremendous change. But certain things have always held true. At our best, America leads not only by the example of our power, but the power of our example. The past 4 years, we've used that power, not to go it alone, but instead to bring countries together, to increase shared security and prosperity, to stand up to aggression, to solve problems through diplomacy wherever possible, and to relentlessly defend democracy, civil rights, and human rights. Because that's who we are. That's who we are. You've heard me say it many times before. We're the only country on earth founded on idea. Every other country is founded on geography, religion, ethnicity, or some other unifying factor. But America was built on an idea, literally, not figuratively. That idea was all women and men are created equal. The idea that has inspired the world for 250 years and counting. We're always reaching to do better. Always looking to the future. At our best. Always seeking progress for our people and for people everywhere. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president. Today, I'm optimistic about our future, as optimistic as I've ever been. Just have to remember who in the hell we are. You've heard me say it many times. We're the United States of America, for God's sake. There is nothing beyond our capacity. We do it together and commit to it. Nothing. So thank you all for all you've done. I hope many of you are going to be staying in the next administration to keep this moving. May God bless you all. May God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and there we have President Biden just delivered his final foreign policy speech at the State Department. Joining us now for some initial reactions is Rebecca Grant, Vice President at the Lexington Institute and National Security Analyst. Rebecca, thank you for joining us. I mean, Oops. There you go. There's his speech. What are your initial reactions?
Wow, he covered so much ground, and yet I just didn't hear what I wanted to hear. It's as though Biden really thinks he's done an excellent job over the last 4 years. And while you got to give him credit for a couple of things, particularly the trilateral alliance with Japan and South Korea and the U.S., I can't agree when he says that he's left the adversaries weaker and the U.S. is in a better position. I think around the world we see that the U.S. is very strong, but unquestionably under intense challenges from the war in Ukraine raging right through to the conflict with China. And I just wasn't left with a sense that Biden had really grasped any of that. Very self-congratulatory on his part. And wow, it leaves a big mess for the next administration to deal with.
And Rebecca, I think a main theme of his speech, and even hearing Antony Blinken's introduction to Biden before his speech, is the theme of global outreach and partnership with our global partners. Now, as we have seen, President Biden's foreign policy has really hinged on this type of a theme throughout these 4 years. Now, with Trump coming in, he's espousing his America First policy. What kind of differences can we be expecting here with Trump's new administration?
Well, there will be some sharp differences, but I think it's important to understand that really all U.S. presidents value our global partnerships and alliances. You know, we could easily sit back here and only deal with our own continent, but that's not who we are. So I think Biden has maybe taken a little bit too much credit. But as to the question of what Trump will do differently, Trump is going to be very engaged with all of our key allies, whether that is our allies in NATO along the Eastern Front who are building up their tanks like Poland is and building up their resources. But we're also going to see some give and take in terms of the economy, in terms of tariffs, as well as we get along with Europe. In NATO, we have some pretty big differences in terms of technology regulations and trade with Europe. And Trump will be bringing some of those up. But America first doesn't mean excluding or getting rid of allies. It means a much more realistic prioritization of what American policy needs to be. And Trump will use all the aspects: trade, negotiations, tariffs, security agreements. We're going to see a much richer and more complex foreign policy coming out of the Trump administration.
So based on what you're saying here, what do you expect specifically to come out from the Russia-Ukraine conflict? Because, of course, we have seen the Biden administration giving billions and billions of dollars of aid, all the weapons, and Trump saying he wants to end that conflict as soon as possible.
Yes, Trump has said that, but I think we're going to see a change as he begins to get the classified briefings on the real situation on the ground that his team is getting now. And unfortunately, this is not the same Vladimir Putin as 4 years ago. This is Putin who is under pressure, but is also dug in as a wartime leader and has a new and incredibly important and powerful alliance with China. I really fault Biden for not telling us again how dangerous that Russia-China alliance is. So while Trump wants peace and wants negotiations, he's going to find that we're not even sure Putin is ready to talk. And the overarching question here is how to keep Ukraine secure. Because even if they were to achieve a ceasefire right now, you're still looking at nearly an 800-mile border along with Russia and a need to defend that piece of Europe and to ensure European security for a generation to come. So I expect to see a continued delivery of aids and military assistance, and also some overtures to talk. And after that, anybody's guess as to what the next move is from Putin as well as from Trump.
And how big of a concern do you think those troops from North Korea and just overall North Korean involvement in this conflict will be to Trump?
Well, I don't like to see that because, among other things, it tells you how far the U.S.-North Korea relationship has crumbled and fallen apart from seeing Trump and Kim Jong-un actually meeting to now we've got North Korean troops fighting with Russia in Ukraine. Wow, things have just really tumbled out of control. And at the meantime, and also we know North Korea continuing to work on its missile technology and on its nuclear power, and possibly with Russia's help. So I think that's a very big deal. There are a lot of negotiating elements. The Ukrainian forces that are over the border in Russia, the North Korean troops. And then, of course, central to all this is what Ukraine and President Zelensky want. Ukraine has said that they are willing to continue fighting. So it's really a very fine line to walk. And he will, of course, have to also really consult the European powers to see what their input is as well.
And of course, Rebecca, I think whenever we talk about national security, we can't forget about China. And we see that both Trump and Biden, they recognize the China threat. We saw Biden continuing Trump's tariff policies against China's unfair trade practices. And now we also saw Trump this time around running on the idea of protecting U.S. manufacturing and reshoring, especially in respect to China. So from an economic point of view first here, what do you expect to stay the same and what do you expect to change when Trump comes to office?
And there has been consistency as Biden kept all the Section 301 tariffs, added some additional targeted tariffs, as he mentioned in his speech. So there has been a consistent through line of understanding that China will not play by the rules and that it's important for the U.S. to start to develop a strategic outlook. What I want to see Trump do more of is to look at what the U.S. really has to do in a hurry to secure our economic interests. Whether that's looking at the situation with the Panama Canal, whether that's looking at the putting more tariffs on electric vehicle exports, all of those things, trying to see if China will in any way live up to some of their agreements that they made previously on buying more agricultural products and so forth. Trump, most of all, needs to identify a strategy. A big piece of this, of course, is going to be keeping control of the most advanced AI chips, which President Biden referenced just a little bit, but making sure that we also let our powerful leading tech companies compete in that global marketplace so that we don't pull in the fences so much that we cede a lot of that global market to China and end up losing down the road anyway.
Absolutely. Rebecca, I've only got about 30 seconds here. I just want you to go a little deeper here. We are seeing that spate of Chinese hacks against U.S. cybersecurity and telecommunications system, right, with that Salt Typhoon operation. We're also seeing China increasing its aggression, especially in regards to Taiwan. What are you expecting from Trump in that respect?
Trump needs to really get to the cybersecurity piece, whether that's changing our primary vendors. We have got to close those loopholes that we've let grow up in all the government systems. China has just ripped the veil off. And as far as aggression towards Taiwan, the Pentagon's new report says, yes, 2027 is a key year, but the danger extends for several years beyond that. We need to really defend Taiwan. I'd like to see more U.S. military forces in rotational exercises on Taiwan, just to underline our strong commitment to that region.
Absolutely. I think this year is going to be one for the history books. Rebecca Grant, Vice President at the Lexington Institute and National Security Analyst, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Coming up, more than 100,000 people remain under evacuation orders due to the LA County wildfires. We'll have more updates on that after this break.
The annual clearance event is going on now at Mathis Home with doorbuster prices in every department. Shop hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles and get huge discounts. Get closeout prices on bedroom and dining furniture, or choose from a huge assortment of recliners from all the top brands. Plus, they're all in stock, so you can take it home today with our fast and easy financing. Come save at the annual clearance event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjian Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Hate is loud. It gets clicks. It gets attention. Hate, however, is actually quite small. But love. Love is the majority. Filling up something far more important than any feed. Love fills our hearts, our lives, our every day, with understanding, empathy, and compassion, leaving hate to become what it truly is, a whisper.
August was born 3 pounds, 9.8 ounces. When I first saw him, it was like a whole range of emotions, joy, sadness. There's gonna be obstacles. You're gonna feel like, why is it happening to me? And you're gonna realize you're not the only one. There's no perfect way. Your own way will be the perfect way. You're gonna protect it with all your might. Just seeing him happy, it's just joy, you know? I look through his eyes, I can envision like a whole future with him already. To throw the first football to him, give him ice cream for the first time. Oh man, he can smile now. I'm happy because he's advancing in life, you know, he's growing. Being a young dad, it's not giving up, it's shifting. My life is now devoted to his life.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. We've just got 7 days to go. The latest details unveiled about President-elect Trump's Inauguration Day and a new court decision that will allow part of Special Counsel Jack Smith's report to come to light despite Trump's pushback. And no more blocking the publication of Trump's election case report. Judge Eileen Cannon refuses to extend her request to delay its release. What this means for the president-elect's legal proceedings. Pete Hegseth and 12 other Trump cabinet nominees will have their confirmation hearings this week. NTD's Luis Martinez has the latest on the Senate confirmation process. Raging wildfires have scorched over 40,000 acres across the greater Los Angeles area. With at least 24 lives lost and over 100,000 residents forced to evacuate, officials warn the devastation is far from over. The European Union is bracing for the U.S. to exit the World Health Organization. Members of the Trump administration say the move could happen on day one of his second term.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
The Biden administration says that a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas is now in sight. The White House provided an update on the progress of the negotiations.
And now, in the last period, just over the course of the last several weeks, we have accelerated that effort to try to bring this to a close. I was in Israel in December, and then I was in Qatar and Egypt, and I met with the leaders of all three countries, basically to try to help put this on a track to get it across the line. President Biden sent Brett McGurk out to Qatar more than a week ago. He has been camped out in Doha, day in, day out, 24 hours a day, working to tighten up these details and try to get this done. We have also coordinated very closely with the incoming administration to present a united message to all the parties, which says it is in the American national security interest, regardless of party, regardless of outgoing or incoming administration, to get this deal done as fast as possible. And now we think those details are on the brink of being fully hammered out, and the parties are right on the cusp of being able to close this deal. Whether or not we go from where we are now to actually closing it, the hours and days ahead will tell. But I believe it is there for the taking, and we're going to do everything we can to push it to get it across the line.
Negotiation talks have been going on in Doha, Qatar, with mediators. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said there's a distinct possibility to get this deal done just before President Biden leaves office. President-elect Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, also joined the negotiations and is in the Middle East. An official said mediators have Israel and Hamas giving them a final draft of the deal. The Biden administration, along with Egypt and Qatar, has spent more than a year trying to broker an agreement to end the war in Gaza. But both sides have been divided over the details of the planned exchange of hostages for Palestinian prisoners that are being held by Israel, as well as the nature of the ceasefire itself. The Kremlin says that while there is political will for a meeting between Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, no substantive preparations have yet begun for a summit. A Kremlin spokesman told reporters today that several countries have offered to host such a meeting. He said developments would be possible after the U.S. presidential transition. Trump takes office on January 20th. Now, last month, Putin said he has not seen Trump for more than 4 years. In June of 2019, the pair met on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Osaka, Japan. And in 2018, Trump and Putin held a summit in Helsinki. And we're kicking off the official 7-day countdown to Trump's second term. New details are out about his inauguration, and a new court decision could also allow a report on Trump's 2020 election case to come forward as soon as today. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. She's in West Palm Beach. Good afternoon, Iris. Tell us, what's the latest on Trump's legal case?
Good afternoon to you as well, Fiona. So the latest information we got today is that Judge Eileen Cannon here in Florida has agreed to not block the release of Special Counsel Jack Smith's report on the Trumps in 2020 election case. And that means that it could come public as early as midnight tonight or early Tuesday, unless other courts intervene. And that comes despite Trump just last week calling for the report to not be released, calling it a fake investigation and fake report. Watch.
So if they're not allowed to issue the report, that's the way it should be, because he was thrown off the case in disgrace. Why should he be allowed to write a fake report? It'll only be a fake report.
But Judge Eileen Cannon also said today that the Justice Department should not release the second half of the report on Trump's classified documents case, as other co-defendants in the case are still appealing the case. Meanwhile, today we're also getting more information about Trump's schedule for his inauguration weekend and inauguration day. So we know that on Saturday, January 18th, there will be a presidential reception as well as firework displays at Trump's National Golf Club in Virginia. And on Sunday, the day before his inauguration, there will be a wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery, as well as a mega victory rally at Capital One Arena in Washington. And also on Monday, which will be the big day, the day will start with a service at St. John's Church, followed by tea at the White House. And at around noontime, Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance will be officially sworn in. And that will be followed by the official farewell for President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. And Trump will then head to the president's room near the Senate chamber, where it's a tradition for him to sign, for example, nomination letters and other orders. And Trump will then head out to the parade to kick off the national presidential parade with a review of the troops. And then that night evening, he will also attend 3 inaugural balls to celebrate with his close allies, as well as another invited guest to attend the important balls in that city. Meanwhile, the message that the Trump inauguration ceremony will send to the nation, according to his transition team, will be that, quote, President Trump is dedicated to uniting the country through the strength, security, and opportunity of his America First agenda. Meanwhile, on the security side, DC police have said that there will be around 250,000 ticketed guests where they will all be attending the inauguration ceremony. And it also says that there will be very long fences set up to protect the perimeter. Here's what the police have been saying. Watch.
More than 30 miles of anti-scale fence will be used for the inauguration, more than any other NSSE ever before.
And the police also added that compared with previous years, there will actually be a smaller crowd of permitted protesters for the inauguration day. Back to you.
It's going to be a busy day there for Trump. Now, Iris, you're in Florida, and we saw Governor Ron DeSantis today calling a special session, that's what he says he's going to do, right, of the state legislature to enact Trump's border policies. Tell us more about that.
Sure. So Governor Ron DeSantis today announced that he will have to call a special session with the state legislature to better enact Trump's upcoming agenda when it comes to the border. He says to crack down on illegal immigration, which will be aligned with the larger Trump agenda going into the White House. Here's what he said today. Watch.
We have a responsibility to be in this fight. State and local officials in Florida must help the Trump administration enforce our nation's immigration laws.
And DeSantis also says that he has been working with President-elect Trump's transition team, adding that he has communicated directly with President Trump. He also says this legislature meeting will come ahead of a, quote, a sea of change in policies from the new administration. Back to you.
Iris, thank you for the report. And here now to talk to us about Judge Eileen Cannon's latest decision is John Malcolm, Vice President of the Institute for Constitutional Government and Director of the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies. John, thank you for coming on today. Talk to us about this latest decision from the judge. I mean, what does it tell us that she's not extending this delay?
Well, so Jack Smith, who was until recently the special counsel, he just resigned from the Department of Justice, has, under the regulations that led to his appointment, although Eileen Cannon said that he was improperly appointed, he has to prepare a final report for the Attorney General's eyes, and then the Attorney General can decide what to release or not release. In this case, he prepared 2 reports because he indicted President-elect Trump on 2 different cases. The so-called election interference case in Washington, D.C., and the so-called classified documents case in Florida. Eileen Cannon is the trial judge who was appointed to oversee the classified documents case in Florida. The DC case, the only defendant was Donald Trump. That case has now been dismissed, and Jack Smith will not proceed with prosecuting President-elect Trump at any time. There are still two defendants that are pending in the Florida case, Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira. The Department of Justice has not dismissed the case as to them and has turned the matter over to the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Florida. And she, I think, quite sensibly has said, look, if this report comes out with respect to classified documents, that could have a prejudicial impact on the rights of Mr. Nauta and Mr. de Oliveira, and therefore I'm going to prevent that report from coming out, at least while this case is pending. She has decided with respect to the other one that Donald Trump will have an opportunity to say whatever it is he wants to say in response to what's in that report. I'd be surprised if there's any really new information in that report. I mean, both the facts regarding the classified documents case and the so-called election interference case have been trotted out in front of the public, in front of the January 6th commission that Congress put together. So a lot of these facts are known. I don't think there'll be anything really new in this report. But she has now said, okay, this is an internal report, and if Merrick Garland wants to release volume 1 having to do with the DC case, he can. But so long as this case is pending against 2 more defendants in my courtroom, I am not going to permit the special counsel or the attorney general to release the volume that has to do with the classified documents case.
Right, and you say there, right, Trump will have a chance to respond to anything that comes out of that report. But with that request to block this report ending at midnight tonight, is there still any chance that we'll see Trump's team trying to block it, or do you see perhaps this report being released right at midnight?
Well, I certainly think he's going to try on an emergency basis to get it blocked. I frankly don't think that is going to succeed. He has no doubt seen a draft of the report and can prepare a written response to it, which would be included as an appendix to the report. He, of course, will use the bully pulpit and social media to respond to whatever it is that's in the report. And again, I don't think there's going to be too much in the report that isn't really known by the public already. The president-elect has said that this is a fake report. He said this was all a witch hunt. He said he did nothing wrong. He has laid out his side in the court of public opinion for quite some time. But we will see what happens if and when the report is issued. And I certainly think that if Merrick Garland is going to issue it, or he's going to want to issue it before Pam Bondi is the Attorney General, because this is a report prepared for the Attorney General. The Attorney General can release all of it, some of it, or none of it. He will certainly be inclined to release all of it, except for any small portions that may be redacted because it contains classified information. I think Pam Bondi would probably take a very different view if this report ends up on her desk and she has to decide whether to release it or not.
Absolutely. And I want to talk for a second about the guy who actually conducted the investigation, right? Special Counsel Jack Smith. Now, amid all of this going on, we did hear he's going to resign from the Justice Department. Why do you think that is?
Well, he has resigned. That's because there's nothing left for him to do. He can't prosecute a sitting president, and so the D.C. case was going to go away because for the next 4 years, Donald Trump is going to be the president. Eileen Cannon had already held that he was not appointed in accordance with the Appointments Clause of the Constitution. That issue was on appeal. And now that Donald Trump can no longer be tried in that case, Jack Smith has abandoned his appeal and turned over the matter with respect to the remaining 2 defendants to the U.S. Attorney in the Northern District of Florida. I'm a little surprised that the Department of Justice has not dismissed that case as well. If they did, there would be no case pending before Judge Cannon, and she would probably allow Volume 2 of his report to be released. And if that doesn't happen, I think the odds are very, very high that President Trump is going to pardon Mr. Nauta and Mr. Oliveira, and the case will go away anyway. But that's a decision that the Department of Justice, which is still under Merrick Garland, that's a decision they have to make.
Now, speaking of The judge ruling that Smith's appointment was unconstitutional. Do you think Trump's team will take up this issue of unconstitutional appointment? Or is there even any point to take it up in this coming administration?
Well, there's nothing left to take up. Donald Trump had won that argument before Judge Cannon. The issue had been appealed to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal, which covers the state of Florida, and it was pending. And now Jack Smith the Department of Justice has dismissed its appeal, and Jack Smith has resigned. So there is no issue pending anymore, and courts don't issue advisory opinions. If there is a special counsel in the future who was appointed in the same way that Jack Smith was from outside of the department, then maybe this issue will come up again. But as of now, there is no issue to appeal.
John, before we go here, I guess looking from a bigger picture, what kind of a precedent did all of these trials and their outcomes set for our judicial system?
Well, in the views of many conservatives, this was lawfare. It was going after a political opponent and your political enemy, which is a sad chapter in our future. The only case that reached its conclusion, at least through the trial phase, was the New York City case. I personally think that case was a travesty and is likely to be overturned on appeal, but the precedent has now been set that the guy who's going to be inaugurated is, until that conviction is overturned, a convicted felon. So there is now precedent for going after your political enemies, through the justice system, and there is a precedent for electing a convicted felon. In terms of the facts, these facts were all fully played out in the court of public opinion before the election. The public knew all about the allegations in the New York case. They knew all about the allegations in the Washington, D.C. case. They knew all about the allegations in the classified documents case. They ended up voting for Donald Trump anyway, and overwhelmingly. And in fact, I think that those charges, which were designed to try to get him unelectable, backtracked, in that I think that the public started to see Donald Trump as a victim of lawfare and felt sympathy for him. And some people who were disinclined to vote for him decided that they would vote for him because they didn't want to vote people into office who would go after their political enemies in that way.
John Malcolm, Vice President of the Institute for Constitutional Government and Director of the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be with you.
And it is confirmation week at the Senate. The different Senate committees will begin their confirmation hearings with President-elect Donald Trump's nominees. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez walks us through what we can expect to see this week.
Back in 2017, it took nearly 4 months for the Senate to confirm all of former President Donald Trump's cabinet nominees. This time around, Senate Republicans are aiming to finish the process under a month, with President-elect Donald Trump's national security nominees taking a priority.
All in all, it took President Trump just 18 days to name all of his cabinet secretaries, a pace unprecedented in recent history. But President Trump has shown he wants to get to work quickly, executing the mandate that he's received from the American people.
Hegseth, a war veteran, has come under fire by Democrats for his stances on the role of women in combat and for his lack of experience in leading large organizations.
Right now, our military, 18% of those who are serving are women, and they are terrific, just like the men who are terrific and serving. What Pete Hegseth said as recently as November 7th is that women don't belong in combat.
Senate Democrats have also drawn attention to Peter Hegseth's FBI background report. The report has been delivered to the relevant committee members, but Democrats want to see the report be made public.
The chairman and the ranking member of the committee have seen the report already. Traditionally, those reports do not get shared with the other members of the committee. That goes back 4 decades, back when, John McCain was chairman of the committee, and I support the chairman in that decision.
On Wednesday, Senator Marco Rubio, Trump's pick for Secretary of State, will appear before the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, and Kirsten Noem will appear before the Homeland Security Committee. It is expected that Senator Marco Rubio will receive the support from even Democrats, while Noem will be grilled on her immigration policies and how she plans on implementing President-elect Donald Trump's proposal proposal of mass deportation. On Wednesday, the Senate's Judiciary Committee will begin its two-session hearing with Pam Bondi, Trump's nominee for Attorney General.
When I talked with Pam Bondi, she committed to me to getting back to doing the job of the people, to getting back to doing what the department was created to do. So people want these agencies, these departments, to actually work for the American people.
On Wednesday, John Ratcliffe, Trump's nominee to be the next CIA director, will appear before the Senate's Intelligence Committee, and he's expected to be grilled on his stances on China and intelligence gathering operations targeting CCP officials. In total, 13 of Trump's nominees will receive their confirmation hearings this week. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
When we come back, raging wildfires have scorched over 40,000 acres across the greater Los Angeles area. Now, with at least 24 lives lost and over 100,000 residents forced to evacuate, officials warn that the devastation is far from over. And JP Morgan Chase eases mortgage repayment conditions for customers impacted by the LA wildfires. Firefighters in LA County continue to battle the blazes. Stay tuned.
Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
بیست و سه سال 16 سال عمري ما هفت
اما داعش کردیان برانبر خشک و دایکانی ازدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارودوخی که است های به تایبت لعراق و سوریه بشه که دگرت و با حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
ریم بو او هفت روز بو و داعش از کرد
تامبوم كرا قوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بهار بيدن نبو باوان رحم نبو
ودمنا سؤالان من خادران نزر باوان نفستم بس نا مانا قوبس ناش بجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبرم تي حملي زارود الدم واسسي وان همو جيبرم
وحشیگریه که توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرا و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده که اما نه روزانه دست فروشی ده
اليوم التوزيع كلنا نصيب.
Imagine being a child, you know, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Elmo's daddy taught him that when he has a big feeling like being frustrated, humming a song can help you feel better. Love your mind.
Thanks for staying with us. We are now on to Southern California, where the battle against the wildfires continues. The fires have mostly stopped growing, but the death toll is up, and the recovery process will take a long time. Here is FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell.
The complexity of removing the debris from this fire is going to be significant, and it's going to take a long time. It's going to take more than 6 months to remove this debris. We'll get the majority out. California will get the majority of out in that time frame, but it's going to take some time to be able to get everything out so they can start rebuilding and make sure that it is safe for people to come back in and start rebuilding those homes. It's just catastrophic, the amount of destruction that I saw when I was there.
The fires have burned a combined 38,000 acres and killed at least 24 people. 100,000 residents in Los Angeles County are under evacuation orders, and over 12,000 structures have now been destroyed. CAL FIRE says the blazes have mostly stopped growing. Now, two of the biggest fire, those are the Eaton Fire and the Palisades Fire, are at 33% and 14% containment respectively. Just in the Palisades Fire alone, firefighters estimate that over 5,000 homes have been destroyed. According to PowerOutage.us, over 52,000 customers are still without power. The Los Angeles Unified School District will reopen most schools today. Schools in Pasadena and Malibu will remain closed. But the danger is not over as the Santa Ana winds are set to return. Here are more details. And more than 12,000 homes, businesses, schools, and other structures have been destroyed as those wildfires continue to devastate the greater LA area. Joining us live now from one of the hardest hit locations is NTD's Christina Corona. Christina, tell us, what are you seeing on the ground?
Good afternoon, Fiona. We are here at Pacific Palisades, where the Palisades Fire has scorched over 23,000 acres and has unfortunately destroyed thousands of homes. We're here on Puerto Marina Way, where multi-million-dollar ocean view homes are just completely destroyed to the ground. As you can see behind me, the only thing left standing in this home is the mansion. And if you take a closer look, you can see Castle Rock Beach. And I just want to say how beautiful this area is, but just only a few feet away, it is just complete devastation.
Absolutely. The juxtaposition between that beautiful ocean there and the ruins you're standing on is absolutely unbelievable. Now, Christina, how is the weather impacting the firefighting efforts right now?
The weather is good right now. It is 62 degrees. The wind is calm. However, officials warn that dangerously high winds are expected in this area starting today until Wednesday that could potentially spread and add growth to the current Palisade Fire. It is currently north of here. There are no active fires in this area. It is moving north towards San Fernando Valley just before the 101 freeway. But I want to show you guys, we're on a street where at least 12 of 14 homes are just completely destroyed to the ground. No residents are allowed in this area. It is still under an evacuation order, and the National Guard is on Pacific Coast Highway all the way through Malibu to assure residents don't come in and to allow emergency personnel to come into the neighborhoods. We actually drove through the neighborhoods, like you mentioned earlier. Schools, businesses are just completely burned. It is so tragic here in Pacific Palisades. Along PCH, for miles, we didn't see one standing building. With the latest update, it is 14% contained, and it is still under investigation.
Absolutely. And now that the fire in that area you're in is over, the hard part of rebuilding begins. Christina Corona, thank you for the update. And more than 100,000 people are still under evacuation orders due to those wildfires. Many no longer have homes. They're faced now with choices about how and whether to someday rebuild.
We have an opportunity to rebuild, and so regardless of what happened, we can move forward.
Officials are taking preemptive steps to help people rebuild when the Los Angeles County wildfires end. The ongoing blazes are the costliest and the most destructive in state history. Thousands of structures are in ruins, including businesses and homes. An executive order California Governor Gavin Newsom signed yesterday suspends some building requirements for wildfire victims. Newsom says he's also allocating state resources to expedite insurance inspections.
We've got to restore the hope and then restore their lives and businesses and opportunities.
JP Morgan Chase estimates insured losses from the crisis top $20 billion. Officials say uninsured losses are a greater challenge. Government statistics show LA County lost about 500,000 homeowner policies between 2020 and 2022. Some lawmakers want Congress to help the uninsured. The head of FEMA says they might need philanthropy.
It's going to take all of us if they don't have the insurance to be able to help them rebuild.
She says mitigating future risks is important to keep homes insured and safe.
We also need to make sure that we're taking this as an opportunity to rebuild these communities in a way that's going to make them more resilient against these types of disasters.
JP Morgan Chase says that it's easing mortgage repayment conditions for customers affected by the LA wildfires. Residents continue to face one of the most destructive natural disasters in LA County history. Chase Home Lending will provide disaster forbearance for mortgage customers affected by the fires. Forbearance allows borrowers to temporarily pause or reduce payments on their loans. Borrowers often turn to banks for relief to help ease the cost of rebuilding. Now, on the other hand, unpaid loans can strain on the profitability of the financial services industry. That can prompt lenders to pull back from markets that are prone to natural disasters. At least 24 people have died in the LA wildfires so far. And thousands of concerned supporters are offering a helping hand to those impacted by the fires. Volunteers are helping out at a huge donation center in Arcadia, a city close to the Eaton fire. Here's more.
Volunteers waited in long lines for a chance to help at the donation center at the Santa Anita Park racetrack in Arcadia, a city close to the Eaton fire. They sorted through mountains of donations that included clothing, water, diapers, and tinned and dry food.
I just needed to come out and do something to help people. Sorry, I feel so bad for the people, so just wanted to come help somebody. That's all I can do. I can't give a bunch of money, but I can come and give my time.
The Santa Anita effort began when a street vendor announced on social media that he wanted to serve hot dogs to firefighters. People who had been inundated with images of destruction jumped at a chance to do something positive and flooded the donation center.
I'm here with my family, my mom and my sister, and yesterday I took some friends over to come here and help.
I have donated the water, I donated the food, cereals, and pasta, and also I donate face masks as well, and also some cleaning wipe, because so for the past few days, so many families, so many people have been suffer from this wildfire disaster.
6-year-old Oliver Lee came to volunteer with his dad and was helping by handing out bottles of water.
The worst part about the fire was my dad's school is getting burned down. Kids cannot go to school. Kids and grown-ups are homeless. They don't have anywhere to live.
The overflowing donation center was just one of many relief efforts across the region. Hollywood celebrities have also pledged donations, and local restaurants were offering free food to first responders and displaced people. California Governor Gavin Newsom said this could be the most devastating natural disaster in U.S. history, one that has destroyed thousands of homes and forced more than 100,000 people to evacuate their homes.
Those needing recovery assistance can apply with the Federal Emergency Management Agency at disasterassistant.gov. For those looking to help, you can consider donating to organizations including the American Red Cross, World Central Kitchen, California Fire Foundation, and Direct Relief. These are just a few of the many organizations helping to provide relief for victims of the wildfires. When we come back, the Supreme Court declines to hear an appeal from oil and gas companies trying to block climate change lawsuits. State and local governments are seeking billions of dollars in damages from wildfires, rising sea levels, and severe storms. The European Union is bracing for the U.S. to exit the World Health Organization. Members of the Trump administration say the move could happen on day one of his second term. That and more after this short break.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure, natural power of Puretang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Puretang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
During high school, I hung with the wrong crowd and I never graduated.
I helped Santiago in many different ways, like all fathers do, because he always wanted to go to college.
I felt a little embarrassed to come back to school, but eventually, once I came here, I knew that it's for a bigger goal.
He was very dedicated, hardworking. He connected with his teachers, he connected with other students. That was one of the key reasons why he was able to keep forging ahead.
It was amazing to see him graduate. This was one thing that meant so much to him, and of course, it meant so much to us too.
With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed. That support is everything.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. We'd never make a separate dinner. And never do that. We'd never let them sleep in our room. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
Okay, well, I'm not at my desk right now. As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Thanks for staying with us. A 6.7 magnitude earthquake has just hit southwestern Japan. Officials issued a tsunami advisory for 2 prefectures, but have since lifted them. Public broadcaster NHK TV said that a 3-feet-high tsunami reached land within 30 minutes of the earthquake. There were no immediate reports of damage. Officials still urge locals to stay away from the sea and near the coast and warn that more earthquakes and tsunamis could occur. Some residents were told to evacuate as a precautionary measure. Officials in Japan said the quake originated from a depth of 18 miles. Earthquakes frequently hit Japan because of its location along the Ring of Fire. The arc of volcanoes and fault lines runs along the Pacific Basin. Over to Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he's ready to hand over captured North Korean soldiers to their leader, Kim Jong-un. Zelensky said over the weekend that Ukraine captured 2 North Koreans in Russia's Kursk region, and now he says he would hand them over in exchange for Ukrainian soldiers that are being held captive in Russia. Here's more.
If Kim Jong-un remembers these citizens at all and can arrange an exchange for our soldiers held in Russia, we can transfer these soldiers.
In a post on X, Zelensky shared a video showing the interrogation of 2 bandaged men who were presented as North Korean soldiers. In the video, one of the alleged North Korean soldiers says through an interpreter that he had been told he was on a training exercise. He appears to say that he wanted to live in Ukraine, but if he was ordered to return to North Korea, he would go. It marks the first time Ukraine has announced the capture of North Korean soldiers alive. Kyiv and its Western allies say North Korean troops entered the war on Russia's side last October.
We now assess that there are some 10,000 North Korean soldiers in total in Russia.
Ukrainian and Western assessments calculate that around 11,000 troops from Russia's ally, North Korea, have now been deployed in the Kursk region to support Moscow's forces. Russia has neither confirmed nor denied their presence. A South Korean lawmaker, briefed by the country's spy agency, said on Monday that North Korean troop fatalities and injuries in combat against Ukrainian forces have likely exceeded 3,000. They attributed that rising number to a lack of understanding of modern warfare and the way Russia used the North Korean military. The lawmaker also said that North Korean authorities appeared to have called for its troops to commit suicide to evade capture.
2 weeks before President-elect Trump's second term begins, the European Union is bracing for the changes this may bring. One of these is the potential U.S. withdrawal from the World Health Organization, which Trump announced during his campaign. NTD's international correspondent David Vivez reports from Paris.
In June of 2020, President Trump announced plans to pull the United States out of the World Health Organization. His administration criticized the WHO's response during the COVID-19 crisis, stating, quote, WHO has declined to adopt urgently needed reforms, starting with demonstrating its independence from the Chinese Communist Party. The Biden administration reversed the withdrawal 1 year later. For Trump's second term, members of his administration expect the withdrawal to occur on day one or very early in the presidency. The U.S. is currently the WHO's largest contributor as a member state, giving the agency up to $980 million. But in terms of funding, the U.S. withdrawal may not be critical to the WHO. Legal expert Michel Caillé and Dr. Frédéric Giacomini argue it would still have a significant impact.
Up to 20% of the WHO is financed by member states, which also pay dues. 80% of the funds are private. If the United States is withdrawing its contribution, the WHO can still operate. But a withdrawal by the US would really send a signal of change to all the other member states.
That would be good news, because it would at least open up a public debate about the role of the WHO and what it does. This topic isn't usually brought out, and maybe US leaving it will raise questions from people.
The Trump administration's move would also support other European member states, such as Slovenia and Austria, which have voiced concerns that the WHO could override national sovereignty. A spokesperson for the European Commission stated that it would do its best to support the WHO within the limits of its budget. David Vivez, NTD News, Paris.
Britain's Chancellor returns from her trip to China, where she and her delegation of finance leaders sought to deepen ties with Beijing. This is as the UK's market faces growing turmoil in the face of dropping investor confidence. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson reports from London.
British Chancellor Rachel Reeves over the weekend struck a trade deal with Beijing worth some $730 million for the UK over the next 5 years. She's seeking to deepen economic ties with China amid a broader push by the new Labour government to reset relations with the Asian nation. But Reeves faced criticism for her trip as she left the UK amid market turmoil. Here she is speaking in China.
London's markets are unparalleled for their depth and openness. No other place in the world has the same concentration of banks, insurers, asset managers, advisors and legal services. We are a natural home for China's financial services firms.
She said London can be a launchpad for Chinese firms seeking to build a global footprint, adding that 40 Chinese financial institutions already have a foot in the UK. Reeves's trip comes amid market turmoil as the yield on UK government bonds reached a 17-year high. This increase means the British government pays higher interest payments on its debt and is also a sign of falling market confidence. The British Treasury said in a statement that the UK and China agreed to cooperation in areas such as financial services, trade, investment and the climate. Banking heads such as the Bank of England's Governor Andrew Bailey were part of Reeves's delegation. Bailey and other top executives from financial firms such as HSBC, Standard Chartered and the London Stock Exchange met with China's central bank head, seeking to deepen financial cooperation and business ties. The trip to China comes following Chinese spy allegations that surfaced last month, with one alleged spy having very close ties to British Prince Andrew and another cultivating relationships with British parliamentarians. It also comes in the lead-up to President-elect Trump's inauguration next week. Trump is expected to impose tariffs on all imports, including a 60% tariff on Chinese imports. The United States is the UK's biggest trading partner, while China is the UK's fourth biggest. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
When we come back, we get a glimpse of technology's past. A museum in Tokyo gives visitors a hands-on encounter with defunct tech. That and more after the break.
A performance that truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Coming to Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, January 17th through the 19th. Buy tickets now at shenyun.com.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
The annual clearance event is going on now at Mathis Home with doorbuster prices in every department. Shop hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles and get huge discounts. Get closeout prices on bedroom and dining furniture, or choose from a huge assortment of recliners from all the top brands. Plus, they're all in stock, so you can take it home today with our fast and easy financing. Come save at the annual clearance event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
In Athens, miniature horses are bringing comfort to people in need. The therapy animals might be tiny, but they're making a huge difference. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
These miniature horses measure just 30 inches tall. Billy is one of 9 owned by charity Gentle Carousel Greece. Interior designer and architect Mina Karagianni established the organization in 2014.
We offer psychological support to children who are facing difficulties, and not only to children, but also to elderly and to nursing homes and Alzheimer's diseases centers and to hospitals, oncology ones and others, rehabilitation centers, hospices, wherever patients are trapped and pressured in an environment.
Gentle Carousel Greece is an offshoot of a Florida-based charity. Karagianni has 6 American miniature horses, one that was later born in Greece, and 2 rescued ponies. Therapy horses Billy and Giselle were rescued from the island of Santorini.
There are therapeutic approaches like riding. Contact with animals is called pet therapy, if you've heard of it, so it's something that's well known because contact with animals calms us down, relieves us. We find even a brief moment of tenderness again.
Omiris met patients at this residential psychiatric care facility. Residents like your host were overjoyed when the 12-year-old miniature gray and white stallion walked in.
When he was here, he gave me a beautiful feeling. After he left, I had an absence in my body. I missed the animal. I loved it. I liked it a lot.
Ivy and Calypso are at a school for children with special needs. 9-year-old Josephina rolled her wheelchair forward to meet the horses.
2 beautiful ponies came. I patted them, took them for a walk, kissed them, and I really want them to come again. I felt very happy.
Teachers said they noticed immediate benefits.
Today we saw the children happy. We saw the children reaching out, mobilizing. We saw them finally getting active and reaching out, touching the horses, and we saw relationships being formed. We saw the children going for a ride. We saw one child helping, another child touching the horse, so interaction between the children as well.
Karagiani is proud of the work Gentle Carousel has done and the impact many therapy horses have made on those in need.
We have some cases that are staggering, like small miracles.
Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Any vintage tech geeks out there? Tune into this. Tucked away in a corner of central Tokyo, the Japanese Extinct Media Museum offers a glimpse of the past through now defunct technologies. The museum is a showcase for old cameras and telecom equipment, including a 1916 Japanese-made Lily still camera, which is its oldest exhibit. Take a look.
It was a revolutionary.
From 8mm cameras to floppy disks and vintage Sony devices. This museum in Tokyo lets people touch and play with gadgets of the past that were once part of people's everyday lives. The Extinct Media Museum opened to the public in January 2023. It focuses mostly on outdated cameras and phones. Its oldest items are motion picture cameras from the early 20th century. For museum goers like 59-year-old Mika Matsuda, the cluttered shelves here set off a wave of nostalgia.
It is fascinating not only for generations unfamiliar with these items, but also for those who lived through those times. Seeing these pieces feels like I'm having a flashback of our own lives. It reminded me of how things were back then. I used to have so much fun.
Deputy Museum Curator Barbara Asker says the museum's principle is that eventually all media gadgets, except for paper or stone carvings, will fall into disuse or break down. The items on display, which are mostly donated, are to share the fun with everyone. So the Extinct Media Museum encourages people to handle everything that's on display.
You can't really tell the weight of this camera just by looking at it. You won't know how heavy it is and that you have to carry it like this. Equipment often has a certain smell. There's a lot of information you can gain by holding it in your hands, such as smell. We want visitors to experience those items using all 5 of the human senses, rather than just looking at the display through glass.
The museum regularly accepts donations. Automobile designer Hisashi Ito brought in a small handheld watch and cassette tapes. Old items he was thrilled to share with others.
I would feel happy if people found them interesting. Even if I keep those gadgets at home, they will probably just be thrown away when I die. So it's better to share them and let people enjoy them.
The museum's opening hours vary according to its website, with fees for admission except for children, who may step into the past for free.
Coming up, balancing the development of artificial intelligence with security concerns. The Biden administration has unveiled a new framework for exporting AI chips, and the industry is pushing back. Stay with us.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that we're making it through. My employees and I want to thank you for your continued support by extending our wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows only $14.98. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.98. But it gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows $29.98 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of these wholesale prices, including my standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98, Kings only $1 more. Not only that, order $75 or more, ship absolutely free. From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks America!
23 سال 16 سال عمري ما حفظ
عملي 11 كل يوم برامبر
خشک و دایکانی ازدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارودوخی که است های به تایبت لعراق و سوریه بشه که دگره تو با و حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
ریم بو او هفت روز بو و داعش از کرد
تامبوم كرا قوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بهر في ذا نبو باوان رحمنا
قدامنا سؤالا من خادران نزل باوان نفستم بس ما قبس ناش بجواش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبرم تي حملي زارود الدم واسسي وان همو جيبرم
وحشیگریه که توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرا و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده که اما نه روزانه دست فروشیده که
اليوم التوزيع كلنا نصيب.
Imagine being a child, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Fiona G. The Senate is beginning the process of confirming President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. A look at the process and which picks are up first. California firefighters are at a critical juncture in the battle against wildfires. More on the latest response. Balancing the development of artificial intelligence with security concerns. The Biden administration has unveiled a new framework for exporting AI chips, and the industry is pushing back. A small fleet of Cybertrucks has arrived to help in the recovery efforts in California's massive firefight. Tesla CEO Elon Musk says the trucks are providing internet and power.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
We start this new hour off in Southern California, where the battle against the wildfires continues. The fires have mostly stopped growing, but the death toll is up, and the recovery process will take a long time. Here's FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell on the firefighting efforts.
The complexity of removing the debris from this fire is going to be significant, and it's going to take a long time. It's going to take more than 6 months to remove this debris. We'll get the majority out. California will get the majority of out in that time frame, but it's going to take some time to be able to get everything out so they can start rebuilding and make sure that it is safe for people to come back in and start rebuilding those homes. It's just catastrophic, the amount of destruction that I saw when I was there.
The fires have burned a combined 38,000 acres and killed at least 24 people. 100,000 residents in Los Angeles County are under evacuation orders, and over 12,000 structures have now been destroyed. CAL FIRE says the blazes have mostly stopped growing. Now, two of the biggest fires, those are the Eaton Fire and the Palisades Fire, are between 33% contained and 14% contained, respectively. Just in the Palisades Fire alone, firefighters estimate that over 5,000 homes have been destroyed. According to PowerOutage.us, over 52,000 customers are still without power. The Los Angeles Unified School District will reopen most schools today, but schools in Pasadena and Malibu will remain closed. However, the danger is still not over as the Santa Ana winds are set to return. Here are more details.
Elevated critical fire weather conditions will continue through Wednesday. Please rest assured that your County of Los Angeles Fire Department will be prepared. These winds, combined with low humidities and low fuel moistures, will keep the fire threat in all of Los Angeles County very high.
California Governor Gavin Newsom said the fires could be the most devastating natural disaster in U.S. history, quote, in terms of just the costs associated with it. He said at least 24 people have died, and with many more missing, the death toll is expected to rise. The combined fires have destroyed thousands of homes and forced 100,000 people to evacuate. Some of the evacuated took up shelter at this FEMA assistance room in West Hollywood on Sunday. They included Zuzana Koda from Topanga, west of the city.
We're absolutely terrified. We've left everything behind. We have no insurance. As far as we know, our landlord says our house is still standing in Topanga, but nobody's letting residents in. And we're very concerned about the next few days with the Santa Ana winds kicking up.
Over the past week, many relief efforts have popped up across the region, including this massive donation center in Arcadia, a city close to the Eaton fire. 6-year-old Oliver Lee and his father were among the thousands of volunteers that showed up to help sort through mountains of donations and hand out supplies.
The worst part about the fire was my dad's school is getting burned down. Kids cannot go to school. Kids and grown-ups are homeless. They don't have anywhere to live.
Private forecaster AccuWeather has estimated the damage and economic loss at $135 to $150 billion. Newsom on Sunday signed an executive order to help expedite the monumental rebuilding effort ahead. It will temporarily suspend environmental regulations for destroyed homes and businesses.
With the fires raging, more than 100,000 people remain under evacuation orders. Many of them no longer have homes, and they're now faced with the choices about how and whether to someday rebuild.
We have an opportunity to rebuild, and so regardless of what happened, we can move forward.
Officials are taking preemptive steps to help people rebuild when the Los Angeles County wildfires end. The ongoing blazes are the costliest and the most destructive in state history. Thousands of structures are in ruins, including businesses and homes. An executive order California Governor Gavin Newsom signed yesterday suspends some building requirements for wildfire victims. Newsom says he's also allocating state resources to expedite insurance inspections.
We've got to restore the hope and then restore their lives and businesses and opportunities.
JP Morgan Chase estimates insured losses from the crisis top $20 billion. Officials say uninsured losses are a greater challenge. Government statistics show LA County lost about 500,000 homeowner policies between 2020 and 2022. Some lawmakers want Congress to help the uninsured. The head of FEMA says they might need philanthropy.
It's going to take all of us if they don't have the insurance to be able to help them rebuild.
She says mitigating future risks is important to keep homes insured and safe.
We also need to make sure that we're taking this as an opportunity to rebuild these communities in a way that's going to make them more resilient against these types of disasters.
Supporters are offering a helping hand to those impacted by the fires. Volunteers are helping out at a huge donation center in Arcadia. That's a city close to the Eaton fire. Here's more on that story.
Volunteers waited in long lines for a chance to help at the donation center at the Santa Anita Park racetrack in Arcadia, a city close to the Eaton fire. They sorted through mountains of donations that included clothing, water, diapers, and tinned and dry food.
I just needed to come out and do something to help people. Sorry, I feel so bad for the people, so just wanted to come help somebody. That's all I can do. I can't give a bunch of money, but I can come and give my time.
The Santa Anita effort began when a street vendor announced on social media that he wanted to serve hot dogs to firefighters. People who had been inundated with images of destruction jumped at a chance to do something positive and flooded the donation center.
I'm here with my family, my mom and my sister, and yesterday I took some friends over to come here and help.
I have donated the water, I donated the food, cereals, and pasta, and also I donate face masks as well, and also some cleaning wipe, because so for the past few days, so many families, so many people have been suffer from this wildfire disaster.
6-year-old Oliver Lee came to volunteer with his dad and was helping by handing out bottles of water.
The worst part about the fire was my dad's school is getting burned down. Kids cannot go to school. Kids and grown-ups are homeless. They don't have anywhere to live.
The overflowing donation center was just one of many relief efforts across the region. Hollywood celebrities have also pledged donations, and local restaurants were offering free food to first responders and displaced people. California Governor Gavin Newsom said this could be the most devastating natural disaster in U.S. history, one that has destroyed thousands of homes and forced more than 100,000 people to evacuate their homes.
Those needing recovery assistance can apply with the Federal Emergency Management Agency at disasterassistant.gov. For those looking to help, you can consider donating to organizations including the American Red Cross, World Central Kitchen, California Fire Foundation, and Direct Relief. These are just a few of the many organizations helping to provide relief for victims of the wildfire. And from one disaster to another, a 6.7 magnitude earthquake has hit southwestern Japan. Officials issued a tsunami advisory for 2 prefectures, but have since lifted it. Public broadcaster NHK-TV said that a 3-feet-high tsunami reached land within 30 minutes of the earthquake. There were no immediate reports of damage. Officials still urge locals, however, to stay away from the sea and near the coast and warn that more earthquakes and tsunamis could occur. Some residents were told to evacuate as a precautionary measure. Officials in Japan said the quake originated from a depth of 18 miles. Earthquakes frequently hit Japan because of its location along the Ring of Fire. The arc of volcanoes and fault lines runs along the Pacific Basin. And the first of President-elect Trump's cabinet picks could soon become official. The Senate will begin its process of confirming Trump's nominations this week, and here's a look at how that will all work.
President-elect Trump may have mapped out his cabinet already, but this week it's up to the Senate to make that a reality. Senate committee hearings will begin Tuesday morning with the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee reviewing Doug Collins as Veteran Affairs Secretary. This will be followed closely by the Senate Armed Services Committee's hearing on Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth and the Senate Energy and Natural Resources with Interior Secretary nominee Doug Burgum. Wednesday will see the majority of hearings, including those for Attorney General, CIA Director, and Secretary of State. The hearing for potential Attorney General Bondi is scheduled over 2 days. Before a hearing, senators will ask for biographical information from the nominee, and they will be required to disclose their finances. During the hearing, the committee will ask questions about the nominee's background, qualifications, and views. Nominees for positions that require security clearance traditionally also undergo an FBI background check. After a hearing, the committee's members can report the nomination favorably or unfavorably before a final vote on the Senate floor. A change in rules in 2013 now means nominees need only a simple majority to end the debate and for final confirmation. Republicans will hold a 53-47 majority of the Senate after West Virginia's Jim Justice is sworn in and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance's replacement is announced. Some of Trump's picks are expected to be confirmed easily. Senator Marco Rubio for State Secretary, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik for UN Ambassador, and Doug Burgum for Interior Secretary will be among those who can garner majority support. Some of the more controversial picks are likely to be Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary, Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence, Kash Patel as FBI Director, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health Secretary.
Coming up, the energy policies that are anticipated under the next Trump administration, how they'll be affecting costs and the American economy. We'll have that and more after this break.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade small batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
Kids love it. Parents trust it.
Obviously.
Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjion Campus courses led by expert educators.
This is spectacular.
Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more.
Wow.
All while having fun.
Perfect.
Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Sometimes business travel takes you to London, Paris, New York, Rome, Beijing, or Hawaii. And sometimes to Palawan, Mimaropa. Here at Book a Limo, we think globally. We think business, your business. It doesn't matter where you go. No place is too far. We're there for you.
What's your destination? Book a limo. Any car, anywhere.
Being a cowboy, I don't know anything different from when I was 3 or 4 years old. I did tough things. I thought everybody needed to do tough things, and if you didn't, I didn't have time for it. I had a very successful career at a very young age, and life was fast. I was preparing physically. I wasn't doing anything mentally on the inside. And then I got hurt. I wanted to be better as a person, and I really dug into mental health. I start my day with 20-minute workouts. I live life 8 seconds at a time. Horses are so therapeutic. They know what you're feeling. When you're nervous, they're nervous. You won't say it back, but we're pals. I take a lot of responsibility in taking care of my kids, my family, and being there for them. You're gonna have tough days. Everybody does. Find a place to stop and just breathe. Love your mind.
When it comes to disasters and emergencies, it's not a matter of if, but when.
I'm relying on luck, but who knows if it'll be on my side.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Take control at ready.gov/olderadults.
Thank you for staying with Newsroom, and you know what time of day it is. Say it with me now. It is time for Business Matters. Today we've got Don Mott. Don, long time no see.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It feels like longer than a week, but I'm back now, and I'm going to start off with an update on rockets.
All right.
So Blue Origin says it's working to reschedule the launch of its 30-story New Glenn rocket. That's after technical problems caused it to cancel an attempt planned for early this morning. The company says it needs to troubleshoot a vehicle subsystem issue. Amazon's Jeff Bezos is Blue Origin's founder. New Glenn is the first rocket it aims to someday be able to send satellites into orbit. And the fallout from the failed Nippon Steel deal has reached the upper levels of diplomacy. Japan says its prime minister has asked President Biden to address concerns about the future of U.S.-Japan business relations. Japan's foreign ministry said Prime Minister Ishiba spoke to Biden about the deal during an online meeting. It said Ishiba told Biden it's important to ensure companies can invest with peace of mind. Nippon Steel and U.S. Steel said the Biden administration has delayed its order for Nippon to end its nearly $15 billion bid until June. And the artificial intelligence industry is pushing back on proposed AI chip exporting rules. The Biden administration has unveiled a new framework for exporting advanced computer chips used to develop artificial intelligence. The government says this is an attempt to balance national security fears with economic interests. Industry groups have criticized the proposal as rushed and have warned that this could fragment global supply chains and put U.S. companies at a disadvantage. Under the framework, about 20 key allies and partners would have no restrictions on chips, but others would face caps on chip imports. Meanwhile, Cybertrucks have joined the recovery efforts in California's devastating wildfires. Tesla's CEO Elon Musk arrived in the Pacific Palisades neighborhood in LA yesterday with 8 Cybertrucks. In a post on X, Tesla said its trucks are equipped with Starlink internet service, mobile electric vehicle charging stations, and portable batteries. Musk said the Cybertrucks will be positioned through the areas with the most in need in the greater LA Malibu area. Musk also noted that some of the trucks were originally meant for customers, but their truck deliveries will now be delayed to the end of the week. And Apple is the latest company assessing its diversity programs. Conservative think tank National Center for Public Policy Research wants the company to end its DEI efforts. It says the policies expose firms to litigation, reputational, and financial risks. Shareholders will vote on a proposal to end diversity programs during a general meeting at the end of next month. In a notice to shareholders, Apple is calling on its board to vote against the proposal. It says the company has the right compliance procedures in place to address any risks. Firms that have recently scrapped DEI initiatives include Meta, Amazon, McDonald's, and Walmart. Speaker maker Sonos CEO Patrick Spence is stepping down, effective immediately. And this comes after a disastrous app update last year, which sparked customer criticism and delayed development and release of other products. The new app was plagued with significant issues, like users not being able to perform essential functions. The company said it would cost up to $30 million to fix the issues and was forced to cut staff. Its shares dipped 12% last year. The company named board member Tom Conrad as interim CEO. The Verge is reporting that Conrad has already shared his first note to employees and said he'll be in the office daily to re-energize them. President-elect Trump has been vocal about energy policy. It affects how much people pay for everything and impacts the economy as a whole. Here's the story.
We will drill, baby, drill.
President-elect Trump has vocally supported fossil fuels throughout his campaign, saying pro-fossil fuel policies will bring down energy costs.
They'll be brought down to a very low level, and that's going to bring everything else down. That's what caused it to go up, along with the ridiculous spending on the Green New scam.
Analysts expect Trump to expand oil and gas drilling, fast-track permits for energy projects, and even withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord.
In order for our industry to be protected, we might not be able to follow what they want us to do.
Energy expert Linnea Lucan says this is likely to bring down energy prices. The Paris Climate Accord is an international treaty adopted in 2015 to lower greenhouse gas emissions. Then President Barack Obama joined in 2016. Then Trump pulled out during his first term. Then President Biden rejoined in 2021. Now Trump has signaled he will leave it again.
The best case scenario would be if we went through that Senate denial of the treaty. We're either getting into it or exiting it. And so our industries don't know how to necessarily react to that. So I think it'll help with stability.
Lucan says oil prices are high and volatile, largely because of this instability. She says another exit, along with a pro-fossil fuel attitude, will encourage more energy projects in the future. The Biden administration says the Paris Climate Agreement helps to avoid what it calls catastrophic planetary warming.
And Kim Kardashian is asking California's governor to raise the pay of incarcerated firefighters. The reality star turned law student says the men and women are putting their lives on the line and deserve more than $5 to $10 per hour they're currently earning for their work. She went on to thank her, quote, heroes for saving her own neighborhood during the fires. As of Friday, nearly 1,000 inmates were serving. T-Mobile is boosting its advertising business with a $600 million acquisition. The telecom company announced that it's acquiring V-Star Media. This is a real-time outdoor advertising technology provider. Brands are transitioning from static billboards to more creative and engaging digital screens. The all-cash deal will strengthen T-Mobile's advertising, particularly in the digital out-of-home advertising market. T-Mobile will acquire all of V-Star's media's marketplace and technology solutions for buying, selling, and managing media campaigns across more than 1 million digital screens. Kohl's is closing 27 stores across more than a dozen states as it looks to improve profitability. The closures are expected to be completed by April. They are a small fraction of the struggling retailers, more than 1,100 stores, and were listed as underperforming. The move is one of the last decisions by outgoing CEO Tom Kingsbury, who is stepping down Wednesday. He's being replaced next week by Ashley Buchanan, Chief Executive of Arts and Crafts chain Michaels. New import and export data demonstrates just how much China is relying on exports to boost its economy. Compared to last year, Chinese exports in December jumped 10.7%, beating expectations. That means trade is set to account for about a fifth of China's expected 5-year growth this term. 5% growth, that is, this year. China has been relying on foreign businesses to buy manufactured goods as it continues to deal with a prolonged real estate slump and weak consumer spending at home. And this puts China's economy in a vulnerable position as President-elect Trump pledged to hike tariffs on Chinese imports up to 60%. Foreign automakers are on a downhill slope in the world's largest car market. Porsche and BMW are the latest car makers to report sales slumps in China. German sports car maker Porsche reported a 28% tumble last year, and BMW 13%. Porsche is citing a, quote, continued challenging economic situation as Chinese consumers pull back on spending amid a sustained real estate crisis. Foreign car makers are also facing increased local competition. BYD and Xiaomi offer tech electric vehicles at a very affordable price, and BYD has released several luxury cars. Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, Toyota, Honda, and GM have all reported hits in the China market. Meanwhile, an exit interview with FBI Director Christopher Wray aired yesterday on 60 Minutes. Wray highlighted China's growing danger to the United States as the defining threat of this generation. He revealed China's cyber program has stolen more data from the U.S. than any other nation. Wray says China has also infiltrated critical infrastructure like water treatment and communication systems. The FBI director also warned about new terrorism threats emerging globally. He mentioned a recent plot by a Pakistani national targeting a Jewish center in New York. As terror threats evolve, Wray stressed the urgency of addressing these issues before they hit closer to home. And the Supreme Court is considering legislation to ban TikTok from the U.S. market, which could take effect on January 19th. How do everyday Americans feel about this case? NTD Sam Wang was outside the Supreme Court to hear from people.
I'm for it. I work with a lot of teenagers, and I see some of the devastating effects of social media on some of them.
I own a small business, and 98% of my sales come because people find me on TikTok, and so the idea that this app may be getting banned is terrifying.
I don't like it. I mean, obviously people are making money on it, and there's also First Amendment.
I don't think TikTok is good for anybody. You scroll on it mindlessly for hours, and it's just eating over you and taking over your brain.
I have never signed up for TikTok because I knew that there were concerns previously, so I stick to other social media platforms because of that.
Free speech is a big part of this case, and that's definitely part of the decision that's being made. But I want to say that national security does trump First Amendment speech rights in this case.
There are potential threats out there, and I think we need to understand what national security issues there could be, and I think it's just something that we need to pay attention to.
We need broader laws that cover all social media platforms to protect everyone, not going through and banning one singular platform.
Are you open to a divestiture instead of a ban on national security grounds?
TikTok's not going to sell. They're not going to sell, and so what this is truly targeting is a ban of the app.
If another company was to purchase TikTok, then the same content would be able to be shared with Americans. So I personally don't think it's really a First Amendment concern.
Are you concerned that China potentially have some level of access to your personal data?
There is some separation in terms of ByteDance being a private company, but it's still not clear what level that the Chinese government has, and I think that does pose some concerns.
I don't feel comfortable with everybody knowing what I'm doing, and everybody having access to my things. That's why I don't have TikTok.
I think that national security is more important than anything, and so I think that they need to work that out before they continue with this platform.
Well, obviously we trust our elected officials to protect us digitally and physically.
Beyonce's foundation will donate $2.5 million to wildfire relief in California. The Bay Good Foundation said in an Instagram post it will make the donation to the LA Fire Relief Fund, and this is to assist families impacted by the wildfires. It also wants to make sure funds go to churches and other community organizations. Bay Good was established in 2013 to help with economic disparities within communities. And former UFC champion Khabib Nurmagomedov was asked to deplane a Frontier Airlines jet after a disagreement over him sitting in a seat near an emergency exit. A video of some of the interaction between the champ and a flight attendant was shared on social media. In a statement, the airline said staff asked Nurmagomedov if he could assist in an emergency, but that he did not respond. Nurmagomedov was eventually escorted off the flight. In an ex-post, the champ said he felt he was treated unfairly, but doesn't know why he was defeated. He was undefeated, rather, when he retired from the UFC in 2020. And NTD made a visit to Detroit, Michigan Auto Show. Ford showed off some of its best sellers, and NTD got to speak with Ford reps about the F-Series. Take a look.
Ford Motor Company kicked off the Detroit Auto Show on Thursday night by showing off a special edition Mustang sports car. Ford says the 2025 Mustang GTD can achieve a top speed of 202 miles per hour, the most of any street-legal Mustang ever. The show floor was buzzing with energy as NTD got a sneak peek at this year's exhibit and spoke with the Ford vehicle representatives about the F-Series.
Trucks in general, for the F-Series, we just achieved 48 years of truck leadership, and the F-Series has been the best-selling truck for the best-selling vehicle for 43 years. So it was a tremendous accomplishment, and we're super proud and grateful to our customers.
All the F-150s are either gas hybrid or the F-150 Lightning is all electric. Ford says a huge focus is choice for customers.
So this is a great off-roading vehicle. Tons of capability. Comes standard with a 5-liter V8 that can tow up to 12,900 pounds. So whether you're hauling a trailer for work or your boat or snowmobiles, whatever it may be, the F-150 Tremor rises to the occasion.
Due to the lessening demand in all-electric vehicles, Ford recently slowed down on F-150 Lightning production in favor of profitable internal combustion engines. Despite that, Ford's Mustang Mach-E, F-150 Lightning, and E-Transit all set new sales records last year.
But not everyone is able to purchase an electric vehicle. They might live in an apartment. They might live in an area without easy access to charging, or they can't install a charger at home. And for those customers, we're giving them other choices. We're continuing to make sure that if they want something that's fuel efficient, they could have, for example, a plug-in hybrid Escape. That gives you the best of both worlds.
2025 also brings an official name change from the North American International Auto Show to simply the Detroit Auto Show. It's a move organizers hope will remind the world that the Motor City is alive and well in the auto industry.
Our industry is in the midst of a disruption, but one thing remains true. Great products always win. And Detroit can compete with anyone.
Ford, Toyota, and nearly 30 other brands will be on display in Detroit's Huntington Place for the 11-day event.
And quickly before we go here onto markets, the Nasdaq today fell while the S&P 500 eked out a slight gain today, and this is as U.S. Treasury yields stayed elevated with investors dialing back expectations on the pace of rate cuts from the U.S. Central Bank. Now, recent economic data have pressured equities and potentially indicating a resilient economy with nagging price pressures, and promised tariffs from President-elect Donald Trump have also fueled worries about inflation. And speaking of which, the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, numbers and the central bank's beige book on economic activity are both due on Wednesday this week. All right, with that, everything on Business Matters. Back to you.
You know, Don, I've been reporting on this fire these fires down in California all day and really over the past week. And you know, what always really stands out to me when we report on these natural disasters is the way everyone comes together. You know, whether it's, you just reported there, Kim Kardashian, Beyonce, these megastars coming out in support. We also saw, you know, earlier reports, just everyday people gathering together to help each other. Even Canada and Mexico sending firefighters and equipment. It's just always so touching to see.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And we were talking to an analyst earlier in the day about this fire. And, you know, he says it's really important that people help each other when he said there were some shortcomings potentially that the government has not helped enough, or, you know, different reasons. But, you people coming together, volunteering, giving others in need with all sorts of aid. It just goes to show that, some people have said on different platforms, whether it's online, that they've lost faith in humanity. But this event just goes to show that when the cards are down, people do in fact come out to help each other, and potentially, it restores a bit of that faith in humanity, seeing everything that's happening.
Absolutely, and I think there's a lot to be learned from that. Don, thank you as always. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
And coming up, a deep dive into the fentanyl crisis. How many Americans are dying from the drug, where it's coming from, and who's behind it. We'll break down those numbers. And is the Chinese regime enriching itself and gaining a strategic advantage from trafficking this lethal substance? Find out more when we come back.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Discover the ancient secret to vitality and longevity with Puretang Black Ginseng. Crafted from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng, each root is carefully nurtured for over 2,260 days, undergoing a traditional 9-round handcrafted process of steaming and drying to unlock full potency and absorption. Experience pure, natural energy with Puretang Black Ginseng. Order now at puretang.com.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed.
If joint pain from aging is slowing you down, Omega XL can help you get back in the saddle, just like it did for John Walsh.
Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. Got to be really fit to ride these horses. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL, and look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years.
I'm Reve Walsh. I'm John Walsh's wife. I ride fox hunters, and sometimes I'm in the saddle for 3-5 hours at a time. A lot of work out here.
I wouldn't have been able to do this. Muck a stall, throw hay, do all the things that needs to be done on a ranch a couple years ago. But Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great.
Once you try it, you don't want to be without it. Makes a huge difference.
It does. Take it every single day, and there's a benefit. It's made you a lot nicer to me.
If you've been living with pain, it's time to get this special offer, the Omega XL, the joint health supplement that millions have trusted for more than 20 years. Omega XL, it's sourced from the green-lipped mussel, exclusively found in the pristine waters of New Zealand, some of the cleanest waters on Earth. Omega XL, it's natural, drug-free, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research that show it really works. Try Omega XL today. Pick up your phone and call the number at the bottom of your screen right now for a special offer. Buy one, get two free. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3, a value of more than $100. But call today and you pay only $39.95. That's a savings of more than 60%. Plus, it's backed by our 60-day money-back guarantee.
Try it. You got nothing to lose.
Call or go online right now to get this special offer. 2 bottles of Omega XL plus Vitamin XL D3 for only $39.95. Call now.
Thanks for staying with us. President-elect Trump is planning 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico, and that's partly over fentanyl smuggling. Canada's leader Justin Trudeau says that they're preparing to counter those tariffs. And Mexican President Vladimir Sheinbaum says they have not, quote, found that precursors arrive or that the whole process is manufactured here in Mexico. The DEA, meanwhile, says that Mexican cartels are at the heart of this problem. Congressional reports point to the Chinese Communist Party as bearing responsibility. Our data reporter Kevin Hogan has more on this. Kevin, what is the source of the fentanyl crisis and why should Americans be concerned about this?
Well, the reason is because an American dies from fentanyl overdose every 7 minutes. Make no mistake, that is a crisis. And who is behind all this? Well, the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party shows that China, that's basically the geopolitical source of it, but it's the Chinese regime overseeing Chinese fentanyl trafficking. You see all these shipping channels sending fentanyl and precursors into the United States and North America, using every channel they can to get this into American communities. And what's more, again, this is every 7 minutes an American is dying. The author of China Specified Unlawful Activities, John Cassara, says that the Chinese regime is raking in about $2 trillion a year, that is, over its 12 illegal activities. Fentanyl smuggling is one of them. So who are these Americans that are dying at such an alarming rate? Well, it's happening to all walks of life, virtually every community in the country. I'll give you an example. One area that's hit very hard is the district that Representative Dan Muser represents in Pennsylvania. He talked to coroners, and they tell the grim tale of how grandparents are now starting to have to raise their grandkids because the parents are dying from fentanyl overdose. So why is it that Americans are dying from this drug? Well, it's because the DEA says that fentanyl is 50 times more potent than heroin, and that it just takes the equivalent of 7 grains of salt to kill a person. So where is this fentanyl coming from? Well, it's primarily manufactured in clandestine foreign labs and smuggled into the United States. So we analyzed the data to see where fentanyl is seized in the United States by Customs and Border Protection, and that's from fiscal year 2022 to 2024, according to CBP. As you can see, the bulk of it, 97% of the fentanyl seized coming into this country is coming across the southwest border. About 2% is coming from interior and coastal regions. That would be like the Port of Baltimore or, for example, International Airport in Chicago. And 0% is coming across the border from Canada into the United States. Now, we rounded that down from 0.1%, but as you can see, the big takeaway here is that the fentanyl that's intercepted is primarily coming from Mexico. Now, we're going to go back to this map really quick. We'll explain this all in a moment, but you see that there is some back channels that the DEA says that the cartels are using to come in from Canada, but primarily it's coming in from Mexico. And now, at the same time, Canada says that they're going to beef up their efforts amid this tariff threat from President-elect Trump to make sure that they tackle this fentanyl problem, get more helicopters and drones out there. But there's a fentanyl task force member under Trump's first administration, that's David Asher. He says that Canada has to get more intelligence sharing, more anti-trafficking and anti-racketeering laws on the books in order to prevent any fentanyl coming from Canada. Now, how do the Mexican cartels smuggle this fentanyl into the United States? Well, they use what's called a shotgun approach. So they use a lot of couriers. They all carry a small amount because it's so potent, and they pack it into the compartments in their cars. And according to DHS officials, 95% of that fentanyl that's smuggled across the southwest border is actually coming from legal Americans' cars. So actual people with real passports are coming in, smuggling this fentanyl. And according to the El Chapo indictment, the cartels just bank on the fact that it's virtually impossible to check every single vehicle. Now, they do use scanners as one of their main lines of defense against this. Now, it's primarily coming across the southwest border, the fentanyl that's intercepted, that is, but how much is coming in? And that's what you're seeing right here. This is the number of lethal doses of fentanyl seized at the southwest border. So what you see is that there are 884 million lethal doses of fentanyl intercepted, and that was in fiscal year 2024. Look at this. When you compare that to the United States population, that is a whopping 2.5 times the population of the United States. So the big takeaway here is that there are enough lethal doses of fentanyl coming into this country on a yearly basis to kill every American 2.5 times over. Now, that's just the amount seized. The committee that we mentioned on the CCP says that's just a fraction of what is smuggled. So you have Americans dying, as we pointed out here, and we also see that there are a number of lethal doses coming in. The opioid crisis costs the United States about $1.5 trillion, and fentanyl is part of it. And so why is it happening? It's all out of the Chinese Communist Party's playbook. Literally, they have a war manual called Unrestricted Warfare, written by People's Liberation Army General Qiao Liang, and it's called Unrestricted Warfare, and in it he talks about the fact that the CCP needs to wage drug warfare. So what is that? Well, that's the CCP making big profits while spreading disaster. Again, this is disaster in other countries, and according to the House Select Committee on the CCP, even if the CCP was able to rake in a fraction of the $6 to $21 billion that the Mexican cartels make every year on drug smuggling, that would qualify as huge profits according to Qiao's definition. Now, how many lethal doses are making it into Americans' bodies? One is too many, but there are far too many because the leading cause of U.S. deaths for 18 to 45-year-olds is fentanyl overdose. Let that sink in for a minute. That is the biggest problem for this age group. Now, the CCP actually has ownership in some of the chemical manufacturing companies that are tied to fentanyl trafficking, and the committee says that the CCP has an economic and a strategic benefit of the fentanyl crisis in the United States, and that is that it's able to have their CCP-linked traffickers become some of the world's most premier money launderers, and not only that, but it's chemical manufacturing industry in China is thriving due to all this. Now, we've crunched the numbers, and we actually see from what's available data from 2018 to 2021, because again, this is a huge claim, very reputable source, the DEA administrator is saying it, but it does show that the fentanyl deaths were going to overtake accidents, all other drug overdoses, homicide, suicide, and even cancer, and the heart disease and everything else like this. So now we've established that fentanyl is the leading cause of death for this age group, but how many Americans are dying from it, and how has that changed over the last few years? Well, that's what you're seeing right here. You're seeing fentanyl trafficking alongside the overdose deaths. I'll plot it on one graph so you can see the relationship. Now, everything in blue, this curve here and this axis going from 0 to 80,000 deaths per year, that's all related to the deaths of fentanyl overdose. And everything in orange, this axis from 0 to 30,000 pounds seized at the southwest border, and this curve here, that's all about the seizures. And this is all information according to the CDC, Customs and Border Patrol, and then a few other sources like Wilson Center and Reuters to get some of this earlier data here. So what is actually happening? Well, back in 2014, that's when you see the onset of the fentanyl crisis. You see the number of deaths is skyrocketing. That's about 75,000 Americans dying every year in 2023, all originating at 2014. And at the same time, that's when Customs and Border Patrol started to get on their radar fentanyl. Before, it wasn't even known to them, but right there in 2014, that's when they had their first bust. It was 22 pounds, and then thereafter, you see that the amount of fentanyl is starting to skyrocket. But what actually happened? Well, you see, up until 2018, it's kind of hard to tell, but that started to rise, the amount of fentanyl they started intercepting. But then right there, 2018, that's when the CCP decided to outlaw or schedule as a controlled substance some of those fentanyl precursors. And then what do you see? It drops off because the cartels probably didn't have as much chemicals to manufacture the finished product. But then right here in 2019, that's when the CCP outlawed fentanyl as a whole. So I'll just go back to this map really quick. So China, before 2019, was sending fentanyl, that's in blue, straight into the United States. But then afterwards, after they bowed to international pressure and outlawed it, well, the drug traffickers got clever and they started making fentanyl precursors, shipping that by airmail into Mexico and then smuggling that into the United States. So that's what you see here. Right after 2019, boom, that's when the number of fentanyl seizures at the southwest border started to skyrocket. And then it dropped here after the CCP outlawed a few more precursors. So what we're seeing probably is this whack-a-mole effect in which the CCP will change the rules even though they're not enforcing the laws, but then the traffickers will just adapt and the CCP just lets that happen, and then you still have Americans continuing to die at this crazy, alarming rate right now. So that's the big story, is that right when the fentanyl started coming in from China, that's when the number of deaths of Americans started to skyrocket. So now let's track exactly how this drug is produced and how it's making it into American communities. That's what you see here. This is the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration's map, showing that the traffickers in China will use every means necessary, going into Canada, straight into the United States, Mexico, even sending fentanyl precursors after 2019 into the United States, smuggling it down into Mexico. Then the Mexican cartels manufacture the finished form, and then they smuggle that back into the United States. So that's the big story here, is that these Chinese traffickers, under the purview of the CCP, will use every means necessary to get that fentanyl into the United States. Now, meanwhile, the CCP has used this back channel here of Canada. It's at a smaller scale, according to the DEA, but they're still using that as well, and that's part of the reason why Trump is threatening them with tariffs. But now, there were the one-time chair of the House Select Committee on the CCP, that's Representative Mike Gallagher and Ranking Member Raja Krishnamurthy. They suggested that the United States should sanction the Chinese chemical manufacturing companies in order to bring an end to this crisis. And they say it's an effective strategy because these companies depend on legitimate business to stay profitable. Now, at the same time, China analyst Anders Kaur, he says that the United States needs to sanction the entire Chinese economy until the CCP ends its subsidies of fentanyl manufacturing, because what the CCP basically does is they give them tax rebates for the sales tax, and then they just let these traffickers go ahead and ship that in the United States, again, causing a very serious problem here. Back to you.
Kevin Hogan, thank you for shedding light on a very important topic. And now coming up, a glimpse of technology's past. A museum in Tokyo gives visitors a hands-on encounter with defunct tech. We'll have that and more after this break.
I go by Jackie. I'm 44 years old. I had 3 kids at the time and single mother. I was working 60 hours a week, still couldn't pay the bills, skip meals so that they could eat. It's been hard because one thing falls into place, 10 things fall out of place. You know, I just can't do this alone and make it work.
1 in 5 children face hunger in America, and food costs are rising. But everyone needs nourishing food to thrive. And they can when we work together so our neighbors can feed their families. Call or go online right now to join Feeding America with your gift of just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day. Together, thanks to a nationwide network of food banks, dedicated volunteers, and the monthly support of people like you, we can fill plates with nutritious food for families across America.
One day my mother came over to my house and said, "There's a meeting at the pantry." I said, "Okay," and I went. There were some ladies in there. They were from the food bank. They asked several questions. Some of those were about me and my story, but it helped me to open up a little bit.
We're getting closer to the day when no one in America faces hunger, but we can't do it without you. Call or go online now. Visit helpfeedingamerica.org and give $19 a month, just 63 cents a day. 98% of donations go directly to help millions of people facing hunger, from coast to coast and in your own community. And when you give by credit card, we'll send you this exclusive canvas grocery bag to show you are a part of a movement of supporters working together to help end hunger.
I have people that I can trust. I have hope.
Please call now or make your monthly donation at helpfeedingamerica.org, and your gift can double in impact.
The annual clearance event is going on now at Mathis Home with doorbuster prices in every department. Shop hundreds of sofas in all the latest styles and get huge discounts. Get closeout prices on bedroom and dining furniture, or choose from a huge assortment of recliners from all the top brands. Plus, they're all in stock, so you can take it home today with our fast and easy financing. Come save at the annual clearance event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits. The divine cultures wonders return.
Tucked away in a corner of central Tokyo, the Japanese Extinct Media Museum offers a glimpse of the past through now defunct technologies. The museum is a showcase for old cameras and telecom equipment, including a 1916 Japanese-made Lily still camera, which is its oldest exhibit. Take a look.
It was a revolutionary.
From 8mm cameras to floppy disks and vintage Sony devices, this museum in Tokyo lets people touch and play with gadgets of the past that were once part of people's everyday lives. The Extinct Media Museum opened to the public in January 2023. It focuses mostly on outdated cameras and phones. Its oldest items are motion picture cameras from the early 20th century. For museum goers like 59-year-old Mika Matsuda, the cluttered shelves here set off a wave of nostalgia.
It is fascinating not only for generations unfamiliar with these items, but also for those who lived through those times. Seeing these pieces feels like I'm having a flashback of our own lives. It reminded me of how things were back then. I used to have so much fun.
Deputy Museum Curator Barbara Asker says the museum's principle is that eventually all media gadgets, except for paper or stone carvings, will fall into disuse or break down. The items on display, which are mostly donated, are to share the fun with everyone. So the Extinct Media Museum encourages people to handle everything that's on display.
You can't really tell the weight of this camera just by looking at it. You won't know how heavy it is and that you have to carry it like this. Equipment often has a certain smell. There's a lot of information you can gain by holding it in your hands, such as smell. We want visitors to experience those items using all 5 of the human senses, rather than just looking at the display through glass.
The museum regularly accepts donations. Automobile designer Hisashi Ito brought in a small handheld watch and cassette tapes. Old items he was thrilled to share with others.
I would feel happy if people found them interesting. Even if I keep those gadgets at home, they will probably just be thrown away when I die. So it's better to share them and let people enjoy them.
The museum's opening hours vary according to its website, with fees for admission except for children, who may step into the past for free.
Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom today. I'm Fiona G. Make sure to stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific.